Good morning. This is the New York City Board of Standards and Appeals public hearing for April 12, 2016. We'll begin with the special order calendar decision items. Item number 1, 382 ADBZ, 316, 318 East 91st Street, Manhattan.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Frederick A. Becker.
We don't need to reopen because the submission happened already, right?
Yeah.
He submitted formally? Okay, great.
Well,
So
not-
otherwise we have to reopen. You
It's
want
not,
us to reopen?
it wasn't submitted with the cover letter, and it has to be submitted.
It was emailed to submit.
To submit?
Yes,
right.
it was emailed to
To
submit.
submit.
We're deeming it submitted, it's fine.
Deemed
Yeah,
submitted,
it's fine.
right? So we have to
Okay.
reopen, so we can
Okay.
just vote, okay? So for, I would like to make a motion to grant on condition. The condition is on the provision of the wheelchair lift to the theater floor as shown, and the designated wheelchair seating area that's shown on the plans. That the occupancy of the first floor by the Use Group 3 House of Worship is never coincident with the occupancy of the theater level that has to do with egress. And on that motion to grant.
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Item number 2, 22710BZ, 20412 Northern Boulevard, Queens.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Eric Paladek.
Good morning. I think we need to reopen this to discuss some. So for a motion to reopen?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. Okay. So did you hear the comments
I
about
did.
the waste oil tank and the trash containers? Because they're close to the residential, even though they moved to the other side, then there's a concern about their nuisance to that neighbor that's to the rear. So an enclosure of some type, I know that the waste oil tank probably needs to have air circulating, but some kind of enclosure. Normally I think of brick that's got kind of staggered lay where there's a...
Where there's like a hole in
where
between,
there's openings
an opening.
in between.
Yeah, we'd be happy to.
Okay, so I think there was agreement generally that that should be done now before we vote.
Well, as we had stated at the last hearing, they're going to be shutting down the entire site. They're going to have all the contractors on site to do all the work. So if we can include it, it would be a big help. There'll be contractors ripping the whole place apart.
That's reasonable. So instead then, can you just make changes to the drawings to
Yes,
show it?
definitely. Yep.
And we can vote on this next week,
That'd be fine.
next year,
26.
Yeah.
26, okay? Okay. Yeah, so are there any speakers on this? Promotion to close them?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. Okay, so then if you could
Submit this week.
submit it immediately and, yeah, and so to come back for a decision on April 26th.
Thank you.
Item number 3, 87-12BZ, 1720, 1728 Sheepshead Bay Road, Brooklyn.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Jeremiah Candrava for the applicant.
The corrected time was submitted, so council be aware that there's a letter that has the correct hours of operation that was submitted. Okay, so for a motion to grant?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you.
Item number 4, 31312BZ, don't disappear, 1009 Flatbush Avenue, Brooklyn.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. Jeremiah Candrava for the applicant.
Okay, similarly, there was a letter that was submitted updating the hours, and so for a motion to grant?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you.
Continued hearing items. Item number 5, 19649BZ, 1280 Allerton Avenue, the Bronx.
Okay, they asked to adjourn this till May, so we have a spot on May 17th. I don't know how much time they need for submission, though. So, I don't know if they gave us any indication on that. So if we moved it to May 17th, they would have to submit by April 27th.
New cases, item number 6, 253-89BZ, 405-411 East 73rd Street, Manhattan.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shelley Friedman for the applicant, the Ronald McDonald House of New York, which operates a building at 405 East 73rd Street in Manhattan. We are here today primarily to discuss a 1990 variance that was granted by the board that allowed the present building to be built, and a approximately 7,000 square foot extension, enlargement of that building. Most of the floor area gets eaten up internally by inserting slabs into various parts of the building, which are clear stories, a 4-story atrium and two 2-story atriums in the rear. I understand there are issues with regard to mechanical space, which we are certainly prepared to discuss. I did want to say, while we're discussing the subject of the 1990 variance, that we're here today with a mixture of hope and aspiration about the new plans and appreciation, because the Ronald McDonald House would not exist were it not for this board. The 1990 variance has allowed us to serve over 30,000 children and families who are seeking treatment and who are part of very important research at our 13 hospital partners. And so we respect everything you've done for us already, and we'd like to ask for a little more help so that we can enlarge our programmatic reach. Our architect is here to provide you with a full architectural presentation if you wish. I know you probably want to get into the issues that concern you. Before that, I'd like to call to the podium Tina Lundgren. Tina is our board chair, to just briefly discuss the programmatic hardship and get that into the record.
Thank you, Shelley, and good morning. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Please state your name for the record. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Tina Lundgren. I'm the chair of the board of the Ronald McDonald House. I know that all of you are quite familiar with what the Ronald McDonald House does and the services we provide children with cancer and their families, but today I'd like to talk briefly about the types of residents we have and the need to expand our house and our sense of urgency in getting started. Our children come to us from around the world for basically one of 3 reasons. First, there are the children who come to us because they are part of a special research or trial going on at one of our hospital partners. For example, we've had about 10 families from China in our residence for more than a year now. These children all suffer from a very specific type of eye cancer. In these types of situations, our families need more of a long-term housing solution, and this is what we provide them. This group makes up approximately 60% of our population. At other times, we get children with rare forms of cancer, and this is the only place they get help. And then there are those children who come to us because New York City literally is their last hope. In either of these cases, once they get on the right program, they do come back to us anywhere from 4, 5, 8 times a year, spending a few days at a time with us. So after looking at the needs of our hospital partners and our residents, both long-term and short-term stays, we realized we did need to expand our facility. We plan on increasing the number of rooms by 11, including 6 new types of rooms we'll be offering, and they are immune suppressant rooms. This allows children who have had bone marrow transplants or other serious transplants to live in not just a 10 by 10 room, but in a suite where they have a play area and a kitchenette where the mothers can actually cook for their children. They may be in these rooms for up to 3 months at a time. We looked at various options on how to address these needs. One obviously was expanding the house, and another was building new. It became pretty clear pretty quickly that we didn't have the financial ability to build a new house, so we committed to renovating and expanding this existing facility. Our issue is we truly feel we cannot stop operation during construction. Only a small fraction of the family staying with us for a few days at a time might be able to afford to stay in a hotel while we expand, and they would lose all access to our services, including transportation, social events for the children, complimentary food, and food service. Also, it would definitely be a huge blow to our hospital partners and the trials that they have undergoing for cancer research. because of the increase in cost of housing these patients in expensive facilities, but also these patients would lose access, again, to educational services, placement in schools that we provide, programming for the healthy siblings, and meal and family support services. As a board and as an organization, we spent a lot of time and resources looking at the expansion project and coming up with the best logistical plan we could for keeping our occupancy as high as possible. Our goal is to remain 40% occupied during the entire construction process because we feel the responsibility to our families and to our partner hospitals to stay open in order to minimize the disruption of ongoing research and trials conducted at our partner hospitals. But as you can imagine, our ability to stay on schedule is key to the occupancy level, and in order to stay on schedule, we have to start on time, which is to be fully under construction this summer. We've started a few construction projects in the house to date, but we need to be full steam ahead by the summer. The reason being that our children have compromised immune systems and often are just plain sick. They rely on heating and cooling systems to be available, especially in the summer and the winter months. Starting work in the spring allows us to start and complete certain construction projects that enable us to stay open during the winter. And frankly, if we don't get started on time, we lose a whole year based on the weather issues. That's basically why I'm here, to explain and to tell you on behalf of the board of directors, the staff, and the community that we serve, explain our sense of urgency to move forward on this project as soon as possible. At this point, if I can answer any questions, I'd be more than happy to do that, but I'd like to turn it over to Shelley, who obviously is here representing us, and I know is known well to you, but what you may not know is he's been a part of the board for 30 years at the Ronald McDonald House. So he has provided a lot of service and a lot of support to our children in our facility. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think I'll stop now. Mechanicals. Is that what you're up to?
Or actually, the easier one is explain that one sentence. Existing floor slabs between the columns on these floors were previously included in floor area calculations.
Well, that sentence is there because you have an eagle-eyed program examiner and an equally eagle-eyed architect who wanted to be very plain about what was going on. When we put on the diagram the new floor area, the architect stopped the hatch marks just short of the perimeter walls of that area because there were these existing beams that are being retained and were previously counted as zoning floor area in the 1990 zoning calcs. So for that reason...
The beams are outside of the
No,
building?
they're kind of inside the atrium, but they're, you know, if you
Okay.
see where they are, they're there and they exist. While there's new floor area going on all around them, those beams are there and were previously calculated, so our hash marks kind of abruptly disappear for
As
truly...
new floor area,
Yeah,
I see.
as
Okay.
new floor area, and Mr. Saul picked up on it, and it ended up in the notice of comments, and that's why we addressed it in our response.
Okay, understood now. Okay, thank you. Now you can talk mechanical.
The issue of the mechanicals is, you know, it's a quandary only because there's so many different ways to describe the situation, and all of them have a ready response and a solution. But, you know, the scope of the different ways to describe it is so wide that we felt best we could do is rather than take one path and have you tell us to go back and redraw everything and get new objections, we thought we would come in with a very generic objection, which the building department was prepared to permit us. The problem is that in the main, from a physical standpoint, that we have a very small roof, 3,400 square feet, and a lot of existing mechanical equipment already on it, and we have to add one new piece to this for this project. But in doing so, it seems...
One new or two new? The pink?
Well, the small one, G, is a very small condenser unit, which is actually below the level of the parapet. So it's not really an issue in terms of screening or anything like that.
Okay.
The zoning issue itself is whether this is about waiving the definition of permitted obstruction with regard to screening for all or part of the mechanical, or whether there's another way to look at it in terms of height and setback. Either perfectly rational, perfectly reasonable, and solutions for both. It's just which one we were, you would be more comfortable with putting into the resolution. If I could just begin by very briefly showing you, look at this RA 16A.
It's not a definition, although it's permitted, it's a list of permitted obstructions.
This is the, here we go. So this is the perimeter of the roof right here. And it is 3,400 square feet. It's rather small, and it's a small it's really the roof of a small residential tower normally. Beneath it is a single loaded corridor with 10 units ranging from 300 to 390 square feet each. So you can see that the scale of this is rather small, and yet there is already a lot of equipment on it. Now, there's a lot of equipment on it for programmatic reasons. As Tina mentioned to you, climate control inside the building is a programmatic necessity. We need, at the moment, we have a two-pipe system, and that system allows us to air condition in the summer and then turn it off and convert it to heat in the winter, and then turn that off and go back to air conditioning in the summer. We are installing a four-pipe system, which will allow us to put individual units, controls in every unit, and will provide the ability to air condition in the winter and heat in the summer. The reason for that is some of the regimes the children are on cause very broad changes in body temperature, sometimes several times in the course of one night. And it's important, we feel, to be able to give the parents the latitude to cool the room even in winter and to heat the room even in summer if that's where the child is in its particular regimen. So for that reason, the four-pipe system is going in. In addition, because we're enlarging, we need a slightly greater capacity. But primarily, the reason for all of this equipment is, while it may seem like a lot for the 80 units or the 90-some-odd units we'll have at the end, these systems are also accommodating a considerable amount of common space in the lower portion of the building. The atriums, the common kitchens, the common living rooms, the administrative offices. So what we have here is the typical 10 pounds of potatoes in an 8-pound bag. It's there already. We only have to add F. It's a 12-foot high chiller. And we have to add, as the chair noted, G, a small condenser unit there. And we simply don't have the luxury of moving equipment or finding any other location for this. Now, also, I should add that this 3,400 square feet is spread over 3 levels. So there's a lot of wasted space here just in terms of communicating. This is the equivalent of a small walkway. This A is submerged into a deep parapet around it already. This is a kind of a flat roof with only a rail around it. So it's not as if we have a single plane to work with. We have to break it up over these 3 levels. And that is the location that we have for the chiller. If we were going to individually shield just this chiller, if that was the direction you wanted to go in, the code for this chiller indicates that we have to provide 8 feet around the unit before we can add screening. And that would collide with the needs for the dry cooler here, which would then not be up to code requirement if there was a screening wall right here.
You're saying that the screen has to be located 8 feet away from the unit? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the screening has to have a perimeter of 8 feet for servicing. That's what we understand. So we're left with the situation that if we are going to screen, we have to screen all of this. This is the perimeter of the 3rd level, and we have to screen all of this because we can't individually screen if screening is required. And we'll come back to that in a moment. We can't individually screen these particular pieces of equipment. That total screening has to be tied back to steel that we don't have up there for wind bracing, and it's an enormous programmatic deal to be able to comply with the screening requirement, if there is a screening requirement, by providing what you see. I guess we don't have it here, but we don't really need it. by literally having to provide screening at the perimeter walls to encompass all this equipment. So that's why we have the physical issue and the programmatic issue that we have. From a zoning standpoint,
I think it's you.
Uh-oh, what happened? We lost the screen. Yeah, we lost the screen.
do we
Oh, did I do that?
How could you have done that?
I did.
Well, I'll continue, and if we get back to the,
Could I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
So it's the construction and the new equipment that is triggering
That's what
the
we're trying.
need, your requirement for screening?
if you take the zoning resolution definition in 2451 of a permitted obstruction, there are 4 requirements in order to be eligible for a permitted obstruction. One is locational, which we meet. The other is the lot coverage, which we meet. The third is the height, which we meet. But F2, all mechanical equipment shall be screened on all sides.
But how can this be applied retroactively? That's the question I keep asking.
My question, too.
Right.
Well, because it's a definitional issue, and the definitional issue simply says all screening. Now, we have.
But, sorry, when this equipment was put up and some of it, I see there were permits, that's something that I talked about yesterday. There were alteration type 2 permits issued in 2013 for dunnage under a generator, a new cooling tower, and to combine the heat and power plant, some of which I see is on the roof, right? So that was done after the text amendment in 2012. So you got a permit for it.
Well, actually, as in the nature of mechanical equipment, it was a professional certification.
Okay.
And the professional certification took the position, it may be subject to audit someday, but the professional certification took the position that the buildings department, which we'll get into, originally took with us, that all of this was covered by the original 1990 sky exposure plane variance.
Oh.
And therefore would be allowed. Now, that work is done, it's signed off, it's a fait accompli. I suppose that question could be reviewed, but the position of upon the filing by the architect, professional cert, was that that was permitted because it had already been waived by the BSA in 1990.
But though professionally certified, the engineer or whoever did this didn't check with DOB that was an interpretation that was agreed upon, or?
I don't have that information. We're not, we're not in communication, and certainly try and get that information. But I do know that, since then, and in terms of this filing, the hub has seen it and said, here's what it really boils down to and why we're in front of you in an ambiguous situation.
Yeah.
Basically, they said, you could do it this way, you could do it that. After a while, I kind of hear the song from The Sound of Music in my head, how do you solve a problem like Maria? It's just, you can do it this way, you can do it that way, you can do it this way, but you know what? This is a BSA variance, and you're filing for a variance anyway. Let them work. Let them tell all of us how they want to see this resolved in their resolution.
Right, but it would help if you told us
Well, okay.
how you got there, so we could see what
clear.
we're waiving.
That's clear. We'll get to that. I'll present the options to you in just a second. But, that's the answer to your question, because they were professionally certified and installed, and they're there under the authority of the 1990 variance. The solution moving forward, the solutions are as follows. One, you could waive the screening provision in 2451 to allow the chiller to not spoil the party and let all that material still be considered a permitted obstruction. You could simply waive that with regard to Unit F and say, for that, you don't need screening, and we will probably be fine at the building, we will be fine at the buildings department on that too. Or, from a zoning standpoint, you can take the position that we'll give up the ghost on trying to call this permitted obstruction. It will be counted in height and setback with regard to the two issues we're already in front of you on in this application. One is the front sky exposure plane, and the other is the 75-foot height limitation, the R8B, and we're done. And that will solve, and that the objection you have from the buildings department works for that solution as well, because we're already asking you for those two things. And the irony here is what we got in 1990 from you was not about the front sky exposure plane, it was about the rear sky exposure plane that had a very short life in the early days of R8B and is now no longer even in the zoning resolution. So there's really, that would be the other choice. You could go back into your zoning resolution and say, we're simply including this in the original grant for the waiver of the rear sky exposure plane. And as I said, the buildings department would have been not too happy about spending all that brain power on it anyway, knowing it was coming to you, and so I think appropriately punted.
So with the rear setback, though, that wouldn't have been covered the entirety of the rear, of what's going on the roof, right? Many of those units don't fall.
The rear setback
came like that, oh.
The rear setback came, we were more or less, we were in compliance with front
Right.
sky exposure plane requirements in the original building, except for some recess requirements that also have been eliminated from the earliest version of R8B. So you can deal with the stuff that's not there anymore and extend it, or we can come to terms on this issue of, we're already asking you for because of this area and this area and this area, a request for waiver of front sky exposure, and we're above the 75-foot height limitation, and we're asking you for that. If this were counted as part of the building, it gets carried along.
Right, yeah, okay. I think that's the cleanest one, just to include it in
We don't
the
disagree,
permitted.
but we needed to hear that
The height,
from you
yeah.
before we could kind of tidy
Well,
all
we needed
this
to
up.
understand the whole
Clearly so.
story of mechanical.
Clearly so.
Okay,
And that's the issue on the mechanicals.
okay. Does anybody else have questions about anything?
No, that actually satisfied my question.
Yeah, that was the big open, what in the world, right? Okay.
Right. We've been dealing with it for a while.
Okay. All right, are there any speakers on this?
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Anthony Scaduto, Fire Department. Actually, I'm speaking to support Mr. Friedman's request, and I'll tell you why. From a fire department operations standpoint, if the requirement to install the screening is enforced, it then takes the operational space away from the fire department at the various levels. If we have to access these roofs, one of our concerns is the congestion on roofs based on equipment. The requirement for screening and to push the screening back to allow servicing further restricts fire department operations on the roof. So, again, just from a fire department operation standpoint, we certainly do support his recommendation.
Did you speak to city planning when they created this little regulation?
Well, you know, as it goes, would you really like my opinion of city planning? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
So, Madam Chair, that's our presentation. As Tina mentioned, we're hopeful for a quick resolution. We're already beginning work under the Alt-2, and we'd ask for your earliest consideration.
Okay, so we can, we can close, yeah. Okay, so we can close this, but we have a submission from the council member that we're expecting, is that it? Something like that? Yeah.
Yes, the council person reached out to me. Have you spoken with his office?
Councilmember Kalo, I mean, the community board unanimously,
Yes.
obviously
Yeah,
unanimously
yeah,
approved this. Councilmember Kalos I saw him in March, and he said he wanted to talk with me about this.
Sure.
It was after the community board approval. I've been calling his office a number of times and emailing, and have had
Okay.
no response.
All right.
Okay. So what we can do is we can close this now and set it for a decision for, I think, for next week. No, the next hearing is the 26th.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, that would give, if there's any submission, we can keep the record open.
Okay?
And then actually, if you could articulate what you said today about the mechanical, that way council would understand better when they're writing the resolution, what it is they're waiving effectively.
We have drawings ready to
Right.
file that identify each equipment and the dates,
Right, and
then
also-
allow us to make this discussion about.
And to make it clear that the requested waiver effectively is for either the mechanical screening under 2451 or including it as part of the height of the building,
Fine.
okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, good. So then, for a motion to close,
Chair Perlmutter?
aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. And then we'll set it for a decision on April 26th. And your submission as soon as possible.
Friday.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
For everyone coming.
Oh, wait. Give me a second. Elena, could you pick the boards?
No. You already sent the letter. You just didn't clarify the letter.
Should I call the next one?
Item number 7, 20205BZ, 11-11, 131st Street, Queens.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the board. Eric Palatnik on behalf of Spa Castle. We attended your review session yesterday, and we heard your board's comments. And with us here today to answer all of your questions are Mr. Holzmacher, who's an engineer who's been retained by Spa Castle to review the pump system and to work with the Department of Health. As you know, the facility is currently closed by order of Department of Health, and the pump system is being recalibrated and amended, and he's been spearheading that. He could speak to a great length about the nature of the work that's been done, and that's about to be completed in his efforts in communications with the Department of Health. Also with us today is Steve Chan. He's the president and CEO of Spa Castle. And also with us today is Miss Stephanie Chan, who's Director of Operations for Spa Castle. So between everybody that's here, we should be able to answer every question that the board has, and whatever we're not able to answer to your satisfaction, we'd be happy to come back and to address with the board. I don't know if it would please the chair, if you'd like me to just
Go through.
start going through the list of the questions that we heard yesterday at review session, and we'll bring up people as I guess Mr. Holzmacher is going to come up fairly quickly. The first one you asked about is the Department of Investigation and the Fire Department sign-offs. The Fire Department is all in good standing. Every sign-off that's been necessary from the Fire Department has been obtained. We have copies of the paperwork here with us today that we could submit after the next hearing, but to the best of our knowledge, unless the chief has any information for us that we're not aware of, we're of the belief that we are fully compliant with any items that would be necessary from the Fire Department. We were a little confused about your question about the Department of Investigation. There's been no change in operators since the original approval, so we weren't quite sure.
Don't we normally, when we have renewals, DOI weighs in? And make sure everything's still good?
Principals, operators, and any
No?
of that.
Okay.
As far as I'm aware of.
So, and there's been no change. Steve Chan and his colleagues have been operating the facility since it opened in 2007, and he maintains full operational control today. I guess the next question you asked for was the Department of Health. So I guess, Mr. Holzmacher, why don't you come up and you could spend a few minutes speaking with the board about what you've been doing and the status of your efforts.
State your name for the record, please.
James Robert Holzmacher.
Hey,
Good morning.
morning.
would you like me, how about if I give you a very brief introduction? I was retained specifically to look at the hydraulics of the 21 pools, spa pools existing at the system. My first visit there was on March 5th, which was about 3 weeks after the near-drowning incident. The regulation that is germane to this is called the Virginia Graham Baker Act, VGB. And what that does, that limits the velocity of water entering into any suction fitting in the pool. The idea being that if you have the velocity of water at less than 1.5 feet per second, a person would not be trapped on that device. So what we did with our examination, we went pool by pool, fitting by fitting, looked at the size of those, and then every fitting is connected by pipes to pumps. Now, there's two different types of pumps on these pools. The first one is a regular filtration system, which you're probably very familiar with, and the concept is very simple. The water is drawn out of the pool, goes through a hair and lint filter, and then it goes through a sand filter, it gets chlorinated, it gets returned back to the pool. These pools, because they're spa pools, also have other pumps. In this facility, between the 21 pools, there's a total of 59 different pumps, because most of the pumps are hydrojet pumps, so for different functions within the spa. So where you have those water jets coming out of the seats, there's one or more pumps behind those. We looked at each of those separately. And there's a total of 5 different mechanical rooms to service those 21 pools. What had happened with this, there's certain parameters that were designed or were the goals of the design. Say for a spa pool, turnover rate is desired to be 30 minutes for the filter pump. The jet pumps, the hydrojet pumps, are not part of that equation. The intake has to be sized sufficiently large under the VGB requirements so that the flow rate actually drawn by the pumps will not exceed that 1.5 feet per second. What happened in this case is that where the pumps were sized for, let's say, 30 minutes for the filtration system, they were all sized based on theory. And you're looking at the length of pipe, the number of elbows, and the average head loss through the filters, et cetera, et cetera. So the long and the short of it is that some of the pumps were running at a little more than 30 minutes. Some of them were running at less than 30 minutes. And some of them, for the jet pumps, were running at higher rates than had originally been anticipated in the design. So first examination, we were looking at the pump curves from the manufacturers, and we rapidly came to the conclusion that there were too many uncertainties and too many assumptions would have to be made for that. So we ended up actually cutting in flow meters on every one of the jet pumps, which are not required by code to have flow meters, but just the complexity of the piping and the distance of the runs. We felt it was better to do that, and some of those numbers were surprising. So two things have happened. A number of the fittings were undersized because the pumps were actually running at higher than had the design, the anticipated design rate. So we've designed a complete set, fitting by fitting, new fittings. Some of them was a matter of simply picking a larger fitting that might fit on an existing pipe size. Some of them, there's also a requirement under the VGB Act that not only is the surface area of the grating have to be required, sufficient open area to have that 1.5 feet per second. The suction pipe behind that grating has to be at least 1.5 pipe diameters clear. So let's say if you had a grating the size of this top, if there was a pipe right underneath it, 1 inch underneath it, the average open area might be fine, but you're going to have a very high velocity right over the pipe and then maybe a very small velocity in the area. So there's a couple of other things have to be done. So we laid out a set of proposed modifications, which the Health Department of Health approved just last Friday. And these include changing covers on many of the locations. Most of them were changed. And in some cases, the clearance behind, the sump behind the cover is going to have to be enlarged. So there's certain cases where certain small walls will have to be moved to accommodate plumbing. While we're doing this, or some other things that are not directly related to the BGB compliance, we'll say some of the pools had a 32-minute turnover instead of a 30-minute turnover. So we have to put larger pumps in, and the covers were sized for the larger pump. And in certain cases, the filters, the maximum hydraulic loading rate allowed on the sand filter is 15 gallons per minute per square foot. Those pumps that were actually running at a higher than anticipated rate, those are over on those filters. So some of the filters have to be taken out and larger filters put back.
The flow meters that you installed, would they like automatically shut off a pump if it was operating at too high a speed?
Not in this case. We put very simple flow meters. Again, we were investigating. We just wanted to have something that we could look at and really determine what the number is. I mean, I can come up with a calculation. 3 other engineers might come up with slightly different calculations depending on what you're assuming for the head loss and the entrance losses and what have you.
But those were temporary installations, those
No,
flow
we
meters?
left them for permanent.
Okay.
We left them in. They're not required to have flow meters on the jet pumps, but it didn't seem sensible to take them off.
Well, it would seem that either it would be a wise idea to do certain maintenance at certain intervals, or have those flow meters, monitor the rate of flow so that accidents don't happen again.
Oh, we agree. One of the things that we did as along that line of thinking was when we sized the new covers, in some cases we actually had to build a new wall to make the piping fit. We didn't just get it down to 1.5 feet per second. We pretty much doubled the size of everything so that it would be,
Much lower.
0.6 feet instead of 1.5. While we're doing the work, it didn't make sense to try to get it anywhere near the number we wanted. So we made it very accessible. A couple of cases, we built a wall out and had large fittings on the wall, but also the suction pipes are in a cavity behind the wall, so we actually added an overflow on top. So it's considered an indirect suction so that you could block up both of the fittings on the outside, let's say with a mat, and you still don't have a significant suction because the water can supplement on the top. So we try to meet, the BGB Act has definition of what constitutes an unblockable drain. So we tried to add multiple layers, not just meeting the requirements, but adding 2 or 3 layers as the geometry
Did you
allowed.
submit already the DOH approval? I didn't see one. I saw, no, you didn't. Because we saw a version where they had reviewed and they wanted more changes.
Well, there's
So-
3 different reviews going on. The approval, there's the as-built plans where they wanted to document everything that was there on the day of the event. And that's been submitted and that's under review. So they haven't completed the review of that. What they did is in the interest of resolving the situation, they reviewed the proposed changes first. And those are, in many ways, the easiest thing to review. You can pull your calculator out and the number is right or wrong. So they approved that one first, and that one, I got a call from Director Wong on Friday afternoon. So I have that one verbally. I don't even have that, and Director Wong is out of town this week. And then the third thing beside the proposed changes and the as-built plans is the site safety plan. So that also, I believe they really started looking at that just on Friday.
So you submitted that?
That has been submitted, yes.
And that's basically done by you, the hydraulic engineer? It doesn't include?
No, the safety, if I could describe, my limitations here are really more on the hardware, the physical structure of the pool, physical sizing of the pumps. The safety plan addresses much more operational aspects, and the big issues of concern to DOH relate to the supervision, and there's certain levels of supervision, and that was prepared by Ms. John. And I do not claim expertise on the administration of safety factors, lifeguard training, such as that. I'm pump and pipes guy.
Okay. Okay, oh, just a second, sir, when you call me, okay. Okay, so then, you're still, from your pipe guy role, you're still waiting for a written sign-off on the flow rate systems that have been approved verbally,
For the
right?
proposed changes, yes.
Right, okay. And then you're also involved on the sort of the forensics of what went on that day, is that what
Yes.
you're doing? Okay. All right, so in terms of site safety plan, that's being done by the owners?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then, once the construction is done, the physical changes of the covers and the pumps and the filters, DOH will have a site inspection to verify all of that.
Okay. All right. Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Hi, Eric Palatnik. Did you want to move right to the safety
Yeah,
component?
since we're on that subject, yeah.
Steve or Stephanie, who would like to speak to the safety measures in place for lifeguards and pool safety and things of that nature? You, Stephanie? I don't know.
Well, first, I would like to mention that we
Please
actually...
state your name.
Oh, Stephanie Chan. And we do have the approved plans, stamped approved plans,
Approved by,
the Department of Health.
okay.
This, I'm sorry, this is the stamped approved plan for the site safety?
Proposed.
Right.
Okay. So, wait.
I did not realize that.
Okay, so if you're going to speak, you actually have to stand up here, so you have to decide who's the one who's knowledgeable to speak about this, and that's the person who should stand there. Okay, so if Ms. Chang is appointed, then she should respond to the questions, okay? So the plans are stamped by who, what does it mean that they're stamped?
They've been approved by the Department of Health, our proposed engineering plans.
It's your engineering plans or your site safety plan?
Engineering, I just wanted to touch upon it because we didn't mention it prior.
He said that they were only verbally approved, but she's saying that they were actually stamped, they
That you
received
have
stamped
Okay,
approved.
could you submit to, well, to Mr. Palatnik so he can submit to us? Okay.
Of course. And in regards to the safety plan, we have been working on it for quite some time, and we had sent it over to the health department, and I believe that they first wanted to approve the engineering plans prior to approving the safety plans. And inside it is much more operational, hours of operation, the use of the pools, the nature of how our safety supervision program will work. So currently, according to code, we have already had the level 3 supervision necessary, which just means that you have to have CPR certification. On site, we had at the time about, I believe, 15 to 20 certified employees who were CPR trained, able to assist in any emergency, I guess, protocol that was necessary. But with this new super safety plan that we submitted, we actually included an additional layer of supervision, which is a level 2. So the certifications are much higher. You do have to have lifeguard training. So we will have that in the 2 larger outdoor pools, just to make sure and, put in this preventative measure to make sure that everybody's in a safe environment, so.
So there are 2 large pools that you're going to provide those level 2 lifeguard training people at only 2 of the pools?
Well, all the other pools will be monitored by the level 3s, but in addition to those, we're including the 2 lifeguards that will be stationed there at all time with, again, the higher certification.
So when you
than
say
regular.
CPR trained, what's that mean in terms of how frequently are they retrained?
You have to get them retrained every 2 years, but since, we would like to stay on top of it, I believe every year we have the American Heart Association come to our facility and train all of our employees, managers, just to refresh their memories. But certification, it expires every 2 years after you pass the test.
You have a trainer come into your facility and conduct the training every year? Is that what
Yes,
you do?
correct.
As a reminder?
Yes. Sometimes we do it twice a year as well, but at least once a year.
So with the level 3 pools, how many monitors, or how do you monitor the pools?
Level 3 supervision, it's required that they walk around every 15 minutes, at least every 15 minutes. But again, we like to have a lot more on staff than required by code. So most of our staff who are on that floor will have that certification, and they're roving all the time, going around the pools, just making sure, everything's
So how many pools per staff member?
It's more on, I guess, clusters, square footage, for locker rooms per se, when we have 7 pools right next to each other. And by pools, I mean spa pools, 2 feet deep, very, very small, right next to each other. We'll have maybe 2 staff that's certified in level 3 supervision.
Does the Department of Health establish how many monitors or how many certified lifeguard types that you need per pool type, or by square footage? How do you know, the kind of supervision that you need, and how does the Department of Health evaluate that?
It's by usage. So level 2 supervision, which is what the additional lifeguards that we impose, that only is required for swimming pools where there's actually swimming involved. But again, our spa pools, according to definition in code, it's any pool that's less than 4 feet deep. Our pools are 3 feet and under. So they do it by number of bathers, square footage, but again, our swimming pools, they're talking about 3,400 square foot and above, that you need one level 2. Our pools are less than 100 square feet, so very, very small. But
And who kind of manages these people who are walking around to make sure that they're not just standing around talking to each other?
Our management, as well as we have pool operators, which is, they call them CPOs, Certified Pool Operators. You do have to take I believe it's a 2 or 3 day class to get certification. They're very good with they're very well versed in pool maintenance, the way that pools work, the pumps work, and all the technical issues, as well as the chemical levels. So then the pool operators also manage the level 2 supervision. So they always report to either a manager as well as the pool, CPO, Certified Pool Operator.
So your level 3 CPR people report to the pool managers or the pool operators? That's the hierarchy?
Yes, basically yes. And then they because the level 2 also has to write reports. So then at the end of each day, we make sure that the number of bathers, meet that code, as well as the chemical level. So they, at least twice a day, they fill out these reports, and the reports are given to management as well as the CPO.
What do you mean the number of bathers meet the code?
By code and safety, as well as the engineering plans, per square footage, you can only have X amount of bathers per square footage. So to make sure that we're not overloading our pools, our staff count the amount of people in the pools.
Okay. So, and how frequently are they counting?
They, right now, I believe every 15 minutes, every time that they rove, they write down the number of bathers, and then the chemical levels are jotted down twice a day.
Okay. So, all of this that you're describing to us, is that part of what you submitted to DOH for their review?
Yes.
Okay. So could you submit to us a copy of your so-called proposed safety plan? I mean, even if it's not yet approved by DOH, at least then we can understand kind of what you're planning to do, and then DOH may probably have comments.
Sure,
right?
Of course. And I just want to comment that this safety plan, it was just required that we update the template, because when we first submitted the safety plan, it was an older template, so they wanted us to just basically put it in a new template. And then with our third-party engineer, the numbers that he had calculated, that's what's really been in it. So operationally, there hasn't been much change besides the, the GPM, as he's mentioning. I don't really know the technical terms, but all that engineering work that he had done, and then as well as the level 2 that we incorporated. So I just wanted to mention that the plans have been approved prior when we first had opened, and it's just an updated
Now you're
version.
updating.
Yes.
But when you first opened, did you have the same quantity of clients as you do now?
I think we had more, but it's relatively the same.
But does it actually state how many people come at any given time during the day? And
Oh, no.
therefore, it doesn't state
No,
that?
it's just more, programs and.
Okay, I think maybe if we got a copy of it, then we could understand what it's covering, so then we can ask questions responding to that, because we want to see a safety plan also in place, but it may be different in its parameter than what DOH is looking at, right? Because we have questions, for instance, about the parking and how you're managing the parking. It's not something DOH would get involved in.
No, this is just specifically on
Right.
pools and saunas.
So with respect to the parking, for example, how are you managing that?
Well, I had some questions just about the pool. If I
Yeah,
could
go
just. There were a couple of things I wondered about. I guess one of the Department of Health violations, I'm not sure, was that there were tables adjacent to the pools which prevented, like a clear walking area, and it wasn't in compliance with the prior approved plans. Do you have an explanation of how that happened?
Tables? I'm not exactly sure what that's in reference to.
Am I incorrect that one of the Department of Health concerns was tables adjacent to the pool, which would prevent, or actual, something preventing an unobstructed path for a certain width around the pool?
In the case if that ever happens, none of our tables are
Secured?
secured on the floor, so maybe somebody had moved the tables.
Well, how do you
but we don't
prevent
have-
something like that? And
Our management, as well as our level 2, would need to manage that every 15 minutes when they do their roving, but.
so in terms of, and then there's also the case where, I guess you serve alcohol?
Yes.
In these, while people are in the pool, they can order a drink?
Just in one of the designated pools that.
And does alcohol ever create a problem in terms of managing the clientele?
No, it
And
has
how?
not.
Well, I guess it depends on what you read, because we've actually received some articles which state otherwise.
Right, if you're referring to the New York Post article that, we had acknowledged that, we investigated, and we didn't find whole truth we couldn't find any evidence of what the claims were made. And unfortunately, the media can write whatever they would like. But in regards to our safety plans and the measurements that we put in place, we actually work with the Department of Health because it is regulated.
The alcohol use?
Yes.
It's permitted?
It is permitted, as long as we have lids on the
Containers?
containers and there's no spillage. But for us, operationally, we only allow 3 drinks maximum, even if you stay all day, 3 drinks maximum. But our
How did you regulate that?
How do you know that?
When
You
you-
have several sites that one can
Okay,
order.
sorry. I'll step back a bit. Once a guest checks into our front desk, you're assigned a locker key, and that actually acts as your running tab as well. So our POS system currently prompts our employees to ask if the guest is going to be enjoying the aqua bar, and if they say yes, we check the ID, verify that they're of age and everything's all tidied up with that. Then the receptionist presses yes, that they are over 21, and that activates the key to make purchases in that area. If you don't have that activization, you cannot even purchase anything at that area. Then they're given a wristband to let them know that they are 21, that their ID has been checked. So we have a few steps to allow that. You can't even purchase drinks over.
So how do you handle somebody who's inebriated?
We have a no tolerance policy for that. Our management is called immediately. If our bartenders are unable to escort them out, they'll call management to make sure that, as well as security, to bring them out of the pool and eject them from the facility.
And so, let's say somebody orders their third drink, they get, when would you notice that? In that 15-minute circuit that somebody is doing, are they looking for that sort of thing, or?
Yes, and our bartender at the station is always monitoring that. So
That's if they come back for another drink, but if they're up to their third and that was their one too many.
right,
then
but
you don't see that.
this location is not like your typical bar where there's always guests coming. So our bartender is always able to supervise that area.
Your website seems to indicate that I could order something poolside. So would the bartender really be watching me? I mean, if I'm in the pool and I order something and someone brings me a drink, it may not be the same person bringing me the same, another drink and another drink. So
Oh, it's the
I'm
same
just-
bartender.
So you only have one bartender who
In the station.
handles drinking at a pool?
Yes. So that bartender, maybe at a shift there might be two, but it's a very small counter, maybe this size, and that's where you could order your drink only. And then you have to come up to this area.
I guess I have a general question, like a conceptual question, because this is a PCE permit that's supposed to be for improving the general health of the population. That's actually how it's described in the zoning resolution. How does drinking at the pool, where you go also into very hot baths, where everyone has learned that you're not supposed to have alcohol in your system when you go into very hot saunas and steam baths and so on, how is that consistent with the improvement of health and so on?
Hi, Eric Palatnik. It's a good question, and we understand where you're going with it. I don't think that this facility is much different than anything around the country. I was away for the weekend in the Poconos. I actually sent your staff, your attorney, Margie's way. There's a at one of the resorts that we stayed at, Camelback, that just opened Aquatopia, which is the largest indoor water park in the United States. There's a poolside bar just like this. I've been to Disney World. There's poolside bars
Yeah,
just
but
like
Are they
this.
applying for PCE special
They're all
permits?
similar in nature. They're similar in nature. Here, the PCE special permit is governing the massages. That's what triggers the PCE special permit here. And the PCE special permit here, I think, is wholeheartedly, is properly granted. There's no prohibition within the special permit on the sales of alcohol. There's no express language limiting the sales of alcohol, nor do I think the intent of it was to limit the sales of alcohol. And just to step back even further conceptually, the Chans have ran this facility for 10 years. Unfortunately, the Post article, we think, was slanderous in many different ways, and I think perhaps most telling from that is if you had the chance not just to read the article, but to read the comments, which there were hundreds of them, many from routine guests, all of which acknowledge they've never seen any of the behavior that was reported in there. Some of the males actually said, "I wish I knew about this or I'd seen it," thinking like some men may. But there was no activity there that could be reported upon that actually occurred that was in the Post article. The drinking is provided, the alcohol is provided as a courtesy to those people that come and spend the day. Some people do like to have a couple of drinks. It is not meant to create a partying atmosphere, college-like atmosphere, or any sort of recklessness. It's a family-oriented facility, and that's how it's operated. And if there is any indication of anybody being even the slightest bit out of sorts due to their alcohol intake, and they're not acting appropriately, as Ms. Chan had mentioned, they are immediately expelled from the premises, and in some cases, they'll actually be blacklisted and not be allowed back into the premises in any future occasion. So it's taken very seriously. It's not the main impetus. It's meant as part of the alcohol sales are meant as part of the relaxation, which is the sole purpose of the facility, which is to provide relaxation. People come and they will spend 10, 12 hours there. They'll eat there. They'll bring their entire family there, the mothers and the fathers. Yes.
Did your original plan didn't show the restaurant that's
Right.
there. So I'm questioning one why, and this seems to be a pretty big expanse of, sort of their program. And in your papers, you make really no mention that they have this large eating and drinking.
The eating and drinking establishment was clearly displayed in the last approval for the exterior parking garage
It
for
shows
the
it
add-on.
as like a little snack area. In the original drawings, in the original grant drawings, you've got a snack area, and then you've got this open
Yes, that was in the
space.
2000, in the original approval. We came back for the parking garage enlargement. It was shown in the parking garage enlargement, and it's been operating there with the DOB, pursuant to DOB-approved plans for the last however many years, I think 3 or 4 years that it's been operating, all without incident.
And in your papers, you mentioned that alcohol was being served?
I'm not sure if the papers mentioned if alcohol is being served or not, but we could certainly include that in our paperwork. That's not a problem to update that and to report to the board. But again, the alcohol really is...
I mean, when one thinks of a PCE, one doesn't necessarily think of an establishment that is going to be serving alcohol on a large level, or any level, actually. I don't know. Last time I was in Equinox, I did not get a margarita.
Okay.
Right, and then you can sit, sorry.
I just wanted to add that, 2 things. One, there's a violation or something from DOH on March 17th, just now, that indicates that pool number 10 was converted to allow food service, table service, and seating without departmental approval. So it wasn't operating according to approval from all the various agencies that were involved. I don't know which one is pool number 10 or what was changed and so on. And then the other question that I do have is, everyone's saying that it's allowed to have drinking poolside, but I don't know how you know that. I can understand drinking where food is served, that's the typical thing where you're eating and you're drinking, and so, but where does it say that in these spa sort of situations in New York City that qualifies as a PCE, say, that whoever regulates that, is that DOH, or is that the liquor authority? I actually don't know.
I think it's the SLA, they of course secured a liquor license permit from SLA.
But when you get the liquor license, is it for poolside service, or is it for serving it at the restaurant?
I'm not sure I wasn't privy to that application, but we can certainly provide you with a copy of it to supplement the record.
Okay.
I think it's vocational.
Yeah.
Right, so counsel, for our record, just a brief memo on the legality of alcohol and where it can and can't be consumed on the premises would be useful.
We'd be happy to provide them.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any more questions? I'm sorry, Commissioner Montanez, you still had questions.
Well, I just said, in a perfect world, I guess this 3-drink monitoring would be wonderful, but what's to prevent someone from buying a drink for someone else? And people
Right.
have drinking problems, and 3 drinks over a 10-hour period, to me, seems like some people might consider that nothing.
There
And
certainly are some people.
and bartenders, make money by tips. So I think it's not as easy to supervise and control as you're saying.
Well, again, we are very intent on enforcing that. There is no law or regulation in any establishment that serves alcohol limiting the number of drinks, and nor has there been any indication that there's been any bad behavior other than one salacious article as a result of the alcohol being served at the premises. In fact, Community Board 7, which routinely monitors the site, unanimously approved the application, and they've been very involved in this site. So there's really been, I can understand the board's questioning of it, given the article that was put in print a couple of weeks ago, but there really has been no negative impact perceived other than that, and they have done and are doing everything they can to monitor it. Of course, people will try to get around rules and regulations all the time. We do our best to try to prevent that, though. And after a while, the same group of people, if there's a lot of drinking going on with that group, I think it's fairly identifiable who those people are. The facility is not that big. It's very well staffed, and the staff is very intent upon preventing that kind of behavior from occurring. But there is no way, if somebody wants to go sneak and have their boyfriend or their girlfriend or their friend go and get a drink for them and bring it back to them. I'm sure many people have tried it in the past, but they've also had a strong enforcement policy to maintain the status quo of the premises. So we can understand the concerns. I'd be happy to brief the board a little bit more on the SLA license, so the board has a little more of an understanding to it and a little more comfort level with it.
All right.
I've got just
Go
a couple
ahead.
more questions. You've got some open ECB violations?
Bless you.
You have some open ECB violations?
Mr. Chan, I think, is familiar with the ECB violations.
I think we had some more questions because that was going to come up in the list, right? I think. Is that on your
Yeah,
list?
that's on the list.
I think
you were going to parking next.
Yeah.
Was
Okay, I was-
the next question, not to take you about,
Happy to go to
I'll go
parking.
whatever order you tell me to go in.
Parking is fine as long as we circle
Get
back.
the ECB.
The previous board approval that allowed the rooftop parking to be issued a couple of years ago was allowed for 140 cars. Those 140, there are right now 140 cars, so the gross number of parking spaces has remained the same. Their location has changed, and that's been changed pursuant to the Department of Buildings approved plan. It was presented to the Department of Buildings, who had determined that they considered it to be minor and not necessarily in need of coming back to the board for any change. The reason the parking layout was changed and the number of their location was changed was in response to some concerns that were being expressed by one of the neighbors on the next to the property, who was experiencing when the waste was being retrieved, and I think we'd actually discussed this at the last hearing for those board members that were here. On the right side of the building was where garbage was being picked up. It's on a hill. And when the garbage was being picked up, the truck was coming in, it was on an angle. And water, or I should say dirty water from food waste would drip out of the truck and create a slime on the street. That was a slippery slime. At that point, Mr. Chan had agreed to install a very expensive bladder system type of garbage disposal for all food and waste, all food and liquid waste. So anything that's food or liquid is disposed of in that. It's on the right side of the rear of the parking deck, and it's on the 132nd Street side of the facility at the first floor. And now what happens is when food and liquid waste is disposed of, it goes in the bladder garbage container. When the truck comes, it takes the whole bladder with it, so that there is no opportunity for any leakage. And in order to create that system to accommodate the concerns of the neighbors, which is also well vetted at the community board, also with the borough president, also with your board, that system was installed and it's been functioning. When it was installed in the location where I believe it took up 1 or 2 parking spaces. That caused a shift of a few parking spaces around the facility, still maintaining the total of 140, but just slightly changing the location of a few spaces, none of which really has much of an impact because it's a valet parking scenario. So there is, nobody comes in and drives around the lot other than the valets do. So we hope that satisfies the board's request. We'd be happy if you wanted to, if we would include in this application an amendment to the previously approved plans to show the current location. We'd be happy to. We just weren't sure because Department of Buildings deemed it to be within their jurisdiction.
You didn't even mention a word about it. It was like silence in the statement.
Well, because
of
we didn't think, we should have included
You say
it.
this was approved, and then this is the number, and you don't mention that there's this discrepancy.
We should have included it. We figured since the total number of parking spaces maintained the same, and there was no reduction in parking, that it was consistent
When the
with.
grant was for a specific amount of parking spaces on the roof, you didn't think to mention it?
Well,
Just saying, never mind.
but we will include it. We have no
mention it,
problem. It's
please.
not anything that was intentionally
Okay.
tried to be kept away from the board, but we will certainly include that in our revised documents.
Okay, and if you can also show us the specifics of this disposal area, give us a detail of the disposal area and the number of parking spaces it took up and so on.
We'd be happy to.
And could you also talk about what's going on the 131st Street side? Because if you look into those spaces by the parking garage, it seems full of a whole bunch of of debris.
That's because the facility, yes, just to clarify, yes, you did see construction debris there. The facility is closed, and while it's closed, the Chans are using this opportunity to do renovations within the facility and clean anything up that needed to be cleaned up as far as wear and tear through the years. So the parking garage right now is being used as a temporary staging area for construction materials during the renovation. As soon as Department of Health gives them the go-ahead to reopen, that will, of course, all be cleaned out. So that's just temporary for construction. And I should say, on the positive side, your board would be happy to hear that when this application was originally approved in 2007, there was great fanfare in the community about the impact on parking in the community and about on traffic in the neighborhood. And the addition of that third-floor parking deck has alleviated almost any problems that were previously ongoing in the area regarding parking and the movement of vehicles around the facility. So that's actually solved a lot of the problems, and thank you to your previous approval.
So is that why you have, I guess, a different area for your loading docks?
Yes, the loading dock moved up to the third floor, which is closer to the restaurant.
You used to have two, but now you only have one.
We only have one at the third floor.
And do you need two? I mean, you know.
We don't need two.
Do you need two, or you know, are you okay?
We're okay with one. The only thing that really comes in is food. The water obviously comes in through pipes, so if it's already there, it doesn't need to be delivered. But the food product is really the only thing that's being delivered on a daily basis, and towels.
So why did you originally have two?
And Mr. Chan is of the belief originally that he might need two in the original design, but as time has gone on, he's found that only one is really necessary.
And in terms of what's required under zoning?
I don't know if we're required to have any loading. You may, of course you may, Mr. Chan. Stephen Chan.
My name is Steve Chan. I'm the applicant of record for this project. I'm also owner of Sparkcast. We are talking about the loading dock. We're still providing two loading dock, one on second floor and the other one on the third floor, because as Eric mentioned, Mr. Plattman mentioned, that's close the main kitchen area. That's why
So you still have two loading
Yes, ma'am.
docks? I don't think that the second one is
No,
on your
not
plan. So,
second one is on second floor.
yeah, but it's not represented, I don't think, on the plan.
That's, yeah, the approval plan shows one loading dock on ground floor.
Right.
And second one on second floor. We relocate first one on ground floor
The second one is
to the
already
third
there.
one.
The other one
So
is
second,
right there.
Okay.
It's shown?
Yeah.
Yeah,
On the third
It's
floor?
shown.
It's
Yes,
shown on the
both
third floor.
floors. Yeah.
It's shown on the ground floor and on the
On the
first floor?
second floor and the
Second
third floor.
also, I want to make some corrections that the other people mentioned about the thing. They said, number one, the proposed plan on DOH. DOH approved the plan. I do have a stamped and sealed approved plan in my office, which was picked up on last Friday. And liquor license.
Just a second. They approved the engineering plans.
Proposed engineering plans,
Engineering
right?
plans, okay.
On Friday, last Friday. We do have a liquor license, two liquor licenses. Okay, one on third floor, which is for the restaurant area. The other one is for the second floor, which is near the aqua bar. We have a serving area right next to the aqua bar. So we do have a separate license, liquor license for those areas.
Can we see a copy of the liquor license?
Not a
Yeah,
problem.
okay.
Okay. Also, you mentioned about this spot pool number 10. Okay, that was modified. Modified means that the figure of the spot pool number 10 was there before as a footbath. We just modified different shape. Okay, that's what I was referring to. And on our proposed the plan, we show that we're gonna delete that spot pool number 10. Okay, we're gonna convert it to seating and snack and seating areas. So
But-
that
The violation says it's already converted.
that's what, yeah, that was as-built condition. Okay.
Yeah.
On our proposed plan, we said we're gonna delete that the spot pool number 10. So we're not gonna have a spot pool number 10 any longer.
Okay. So you've now shown on your drawings
Yes, ma'am.
what you effectively already did.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay. Also, someone mentioned about snack area. We had a snack area on second floor, open areas. We call that open areas. And it is still there. There's a snack area. But the other area that was, you said we put the big kitchen, that was approved by BSA. Okay. Originally, BSA approved, original plan was approved on July 2007. In December, BSA made the amendment by letter, and that letter specifically explained we are putting restaurants right next to the snack areas. That's what it said. Also, you mentioned about the massage area on mezzanine.
Yes.
That was also indicated on the amendment by letter.
Yeah, because my question was, is that if you have, that used to be mechanical space.
Yeah.
So that sort of racks up differently in terms of square footage, what we count as square footage, as opposed to massage areas, which now increases your square footage and your occupancy load.
You are very
So I was
correct.
wondering if that had, and maybe Mr. Palatnik can answer that, if there is now a change in occupancy that triggers more spaces, or you have more square footage than you've accounted for?
But I could answer that
And maybe
because
you
I
could
was
give us
the
a set
engineer.
of the drawings
in
that
Bradford.
include
Okay.
that.
Can I have that?
Would be helpful.
2007 amendment by letter. Okay. We had, if you look at the original approved plan by BSA, we have office area on penthouse. On this, the approved by December 7 amendment by letter indicate that we're going to delete that office area on the penthouse.
And exchange it for the?
Yes, trade off.
Okay.
Okay, that's in here, which was, okay, that's all the certificate of occupancy issued by DOH clearly indicate the mezzanine is massage place.
So you're saying that the BSA approved plans match what we're seeing today? And what's your proposal, what's existing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And has been submitted to DOH for their review?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Also, the ECB violation, we have 2 elevator violations outstanding. Okay, one is we missing third-party elevator inspection, annual inspection by third party. Okay, there's a new regulation. We have to hire, not the installer, we have to hire third-party inspector to inspect. We missed that, so we hired third-party inspection and we did that. So all the paperwork in DOB, elevator section, we was
You
spent on.
filed for correction?
Yeah, March 15, we dropped off, so they are taking time to, do some work. The other one was the DOB elevator inspector showed up one day, and that time the elevator was out of order. So he issued a violation, but now it's perfectly working condition. So we try to remove that violation. These are the 2 open elevator, the ECB violations.
I'm looking at the December 7th amendment that was submitted. Maybe what you submitted and what we have electronically, maybe a page is missing, because I am only able to see the first floor and the lower floor plan, and then there is the third floor plan. I don't see the mezzanine plan, and which is where you're saying the change to the...
There's the, do you have that, this?
I'm looking at the December 7th, the same package that you have, but our electronic document doesn't include the mezzanine, so maybe that didn't get submitted.
Yeah, I think that we don't have the correct set of drawings for the
Complete
amendment.
set of plans, so if you could just submit the complete set
Yes, ma'am.
of the approved plan of December 7th.
Also, I'm gonna submit the COO from DOB saying that there's a massage area on mezzanine. Also, tipping for our bartender don't get tipped by your patrons. Okay, that's our in-house policy, because as you mentioned, okay, if they get tipped directly from the customers, they could do some bad things. To prevent that, we said no tip, okay? Tip is included in the tab, okay? If the pay $10, tip is included in that. They don't get separate tips at all. loading that I mentioned about that, I think, screening. So, okay, I saw the screening about the parking area. Okay. If you are joined with the manufacturing, when you provide the screening, do you have that picture? We have a screening on first floor and second floor parking area. On third floor, we have a railing, okay? But I checked the regulation, zoning resolution, and it says that if you don't face the residential zoning area, you don't have to provide screening for the parking. So that's the regulation from the zoning resolution. And
No, but not the zoning resolution. The BSA resolution required that screening be installed.
oh, okay, if that's so, then we will provide the same screening as the first and second floor. That's not a problem.
Okay, what is the screening that's provided at the first and second floor?
I have drawings, pictures.
Oh, that's what these photographs are?
Yeah. The stucco finish to match the existing facade. And third floor, top floor, that's the railing only.
Wait, sorry. So I see stone parapet. Is that what you're talking about?
Stone parapet. No, that's the lighting. You mentioned about the lighting. You want pictures from lighting?
Okay,
Outdoor
so
lighting?
where's the screening? So this rail, sort of this classical railing, is that what you're talking about for screening? So that's lighting, we're talking about lighting.
It's the back couple
Okay,
pages is where
The
it's
fourth or
shown.
fifth page.
Oh, these
Yeah.
railings at the back.
Yeah, we took the picture from outside. Okay, for ground floor and second floor, we have screening.
What's the screening, what is that?
It's made of stucco to match the existing facade.
What's the white portion that we're seeing on this,
White portion.
yeah, this part?
Oh, this is, yeah, we haven't finished that. That's mechanical area decorated.
Okay.
So we are planning to do some exterior work. We have done interior renovation already. So, when weather gets better, we are planning to do exterior renovation.
Okay.
So that's gonna be the part of it.
So with respect to the screening then, could you provide us with a drawing that shows what you're proposing to do to provide the required screening for?
Yeah, we will do the same way.
Yeah, but we need to see the drawing.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because it's a little hard to imagine how you're actually going to accomplish that with a
Yeah.
stucco wall. Okay? Okay, so,
Also from the photos, I'm not quite sure I understand how the screening, the existing screening is operating, so if you can provide a better photograph of what the existing screening is, that would also...
From inside, I'm looking.
Both inside and outside,
This
because
outside is-
it's too dark and
Ah.
it's not
Yeah.
very clear.
Yeah.
So if you can just
Took the
provide a
pictures
clear
here last
picture.
night, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
so Eric, you're going to provide drawings to show the screening, right?
Yes.
Both existing and proposed screening of the parking area.
Ballet, clarify the statement. Yes, well, we are doing the ballet parking.
Okay. And then, so I think we wanted current information about current parking conditions. So that was, when you first applied to expand the parking garage to 140 spaces. And I just want to add, Mr. Palatnik, that there is a violation from 2015 that says occupancy contrary to that allowed by the C of O and BSA approval noted at parking structure, parking spaces reduced contrary to the C of O, which states first floor for 52 cars. So DOB didn't exactly approve this modification, got a violation for it.
When was that
It's-
issued?
It's still in violation, it's an open violation.
Which-
2015?
From 2015, March 2015.
Yeah, this is the same period that thing happened with we got not a complaint, no, call from the 2047 and our neighbor, a friend, I forgot his name, okay? look, you have this problem with the trash, okay, when they pick up the trash, okay, you have to do something on it. So we had the meeting. At that time, apparently he called everybody and they issued a violation on that one. Okay, so after the new CO board, then it's gonna be cleared.
Right, kind of, yeah, okay. So I'm just pointing it out because a statement was made which was not totally accurate. Okay, so the other thing is, so you had 140 spaces from the last approval, right? The question is, how is that meeting the needs of the facility? Is the facility busier now? Are there more patrons? Is there a need for additional parking? Are more people parking on the street?
Okay, since we just add this third floor, the parking plot, we don't have a parking issues any longer. Not that I'm admitting that we have a parking issue. People have to park on the street, but we don't see that anymore. Okay, so there's no more, rarely, hardly, less off-street parking. Okay, people don't have to look for parking spaces on the street because we have plenty of parking spaces.
Okay, so people aren't coming to you at the front desk saying, oh my God, I had so much trouble finding parking. Okay. And in terms of the trash, in the statement of facts, it says that there's trash pickup once a week on Friday. That sounded very little to me. What's the real situation?
No, if you look at, when we submit the proposed plan, we will show the compactor and 2 trash containers, okay? We were talking about, the compactor is picked up once a week, only have 1/3 filled, okay? But we have 2 other containers containing boxes, some other things beside the food, waste. They are picked up Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 times a week. It's 2 containers. So compactor is not the only one. We cannot put any boxes in there. We can only put like a food waste, something mushy, that kind of thing goes in
So the
there.
compactor, this thing that you were calling what did you call it? The bladder, that actually goes into a compactor? That stuff that goes into this bladder is compacted?
We're dealing with 2 sanitation people, one for compactor. They only pick up the trash from the, residue from the compactor, compacted material.
Okay.
The other sanitation people pick up 2 garbage containers, which held boxes, some recycled materials or. Bladder.
Let him answer.
Where you had the residue?
Oh, we have a collector there. Okay, so, when they compact it, there's some kind of liquid coming out.
Yeah.
Meaning that there's collecting container. They collect that thing and they treat separately.
Okay, so the compactor, which is food waste that's been compacted, that's picked up once a week.
Yes, ma'am.
The bladder into which the sluice, how do you pronounce that? It's not sludge, it's sluice, goes. That is picked, how is that disposed of?
No, they are compactor, the sanitation people will handle both.
They handle both once a week?
Once a week.
Once a week. And then you have the non-perishable that gets picked up 3 times a week.
Yes, ma'am.
At what time does it get picked up?
4 to 5 a.m.
Okay. So.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay.
Compactor is picked up around 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, between 6, 7 a.m.
On a Friday?
On Friday.
Okay. All right, so the statement of facts needs to be revised? Okay. Also, you mentioned the hours of operation were going to be modified in your letter. Are they going to be modified? What's your proposal?
Oh, yeah, it's going to be modified. Okay.
To what?
Opening at 6 to 8, yeah, changing. We're going to be opening at 8 o'clock in the morning, not 6 a.m.
For the entire facility, not just certain pools?
Yes, ma'am.
And why did you decide to change that?
No, we're running this for over 9 years, okay? In the morning, most of our patrons, okay, in the morning, the women, okay, they send their kids to school, they send the wife to work, okay, they start coming in. So normally they start coming in around, the 9 o'clock. In the morning, they don't. So in the afternoon, the husband, kids, they come in after school, after work, okay? That's the nature of our business. So, running for past 9 years, we don't see that many patrons, guests coming in only in the morning, so we decide to.
Okay, but you're still talking about a midnight closing?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the original approval from the BSA was very specific about what was open when, and the statement of facts doesn't mention that. It says 6 a.m. to midnight in general, that's the bath and locker room area, with seven days a week, with no admission after 10 p.m. The restaurant and pools, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week, and massage and fitness areas, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Is there a difference?
It will remain same, except for the opening hour, 6 to 8. 10 to 10. Yeah, 10 to 10 is good
10 to 10 for the pool.
for the pool.
All right, so again, clarify the actual. Okay. Okay. And then, what else do we see? Oh, there were many conditions that were imposed by the prior approvals. And, we have these sort of a standard form in the statement that where you just show compliance. In this case, I'd like to hear how each one of those things was complied with, because it says compliance, but then, for example, it isn't because the rooftop parking was not in compliance, or the screening was not in compliance, that kind of thing. So I'd like to hear one by one how you're in compliance with those regulations. If you can't do that right here, then you should speak with Mr. Palatnik and do that with him, okay? What? No, it should be, that's what I mean. You should talk to him, and then he'll submit to us a revised compliance schedule.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? I think that was everything I have notes on. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any speakers on this? No? Okay. All right, so I think if you could submit all that stuff, I don't know if I want to really close this, it's a lot to look at. And we still need to wait for DOH to approve the various plans and so on. And there are no, I asked for speakers, no speakers, right? Okay. So how much time do you need to?
We could submit, we're in a rush only because we had tried to get this application in a year ahead of its expiration date. We filed it back in August, simply for the reason that the previous term expires over the summer. So we didn't want to be in a situation where we could potentially be occupying without a valid certificate of occupancy.
Well, we're also on the DOH's schedule.
Right. So we'd like to respond as quick as we can. If we could respond within 2 weeks, that would be okay with the board.
So if you submit it on say the 27th?
That would be great.
That's, I don't know, hold on a second.
And hopefully by that point, we'll have a sign off from the Department of
Let me
Health.
just make sure we can do that. Can we do May 17th? Yeah, that's fine. So you could come back for continuation on May 17th
That would be great.
and submit April 27th.
Thank you, and thank you for your patience with
Thank
the
you for
application. We
coming.
know there was a lot.
Okay. Appeals calendar, decision items, item number 8, 174-15A through 176-15A. Johnson Street and Milo Way, Staten Island.
Good morning, Philip L. Rampula.
Good morning. I think we have verification from fire department that they signed off on this. And that was kind of all. So I'd just like to make a motion to approve on condition that the owner maintains the no parking signs as shown on the drawings on Mila and Industrial Loop, because Johnson's going to be handled by DOT, right?
Well, what DOT?
If you speak, we have to open the hearing. So we could make it conditional on putting it on all the 3 streets, and then you work out the details. Okay. So both on Mila, Industrial, and Johnson. So for a motion to grant on that condition?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sorry, wrong place. Item number 9, 26215A, 64 Sharrett Avenue, Staten Island.
Anyone here for this?
Eric's outside.
Eric.
Sorry, he hasn't to be here.
Does Eric want to come? There he is. Jog.
Sorry about that.
So we're doing Sharrett.
I figured as much. Good morning again, Eric Palatnik.
So for a motion to grant?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
New cases, item number 10, 162, 164, 15A, 139, 48, 88 Road, Queens, and number 11, 165, 166, 15A, 88, 30, 34, 36, 38, 144th Street, Queens.
Good morning. Josh Rhinesmith of Aikman LLP for the applicant. These are 2 companion applications seeking a determination from the board that the applicant, through its prior owner, has obtained a common law vested right to continue with the construction of 5 3-story townhomes in Jamaica, Queens, under the prior R6 zoning. Permits were originally issued for the 5 buildings in May of 2007. Foundation was completed in July of 2007, was inspected by the Department of Buildings, and noted that the foundations for all 5 buildings were complete. In September 2007, pursuant to the Jamaica rezoning, the zoning for the property was changed from an R6 zoning district to its current R5 designation. However, at that time, the projects had vested as of right pursuant to section 11331, since the foundations were complete in advance of the zoning change. Around that time, the property owner experienced financial difficulties, was not able to continue work after the completion of the foundations, and did not complete construction, obviously, pursuant to 11332, which required that the construction be completed within 2 years of the zoning change. In 2010, an application was granted to extend the time to complete construction, pursuant to a BZY application. The board found that the applicant had met the thresholds for substantial construction and expenditures in connection with the BZY analysis. At that time, the applicant still was encountering financial difficulty, had to declare personal bankruptcy, which tied up the property for some time. Once the bankruptcy petition was cleared, the banks went and foreclosed on the properties. And the current property owner acquired one of the lots in April of last year, and acquired the second lot in October of last year through short sales arranged with the bank. And so the delays have all been resulting from the legal troubles of the original owner, and then the bankruptcy and foreclosure proceedings that had been enacted. I believe there was a question regarding length of time for vested rights. The New York case law basically says that an applicant can be divested of their vested right through an abandonment of the project. Abandonment can be a lengthy period of time. However, a lot of the case law talks about decades from or actually vesting the right to then seeking to continue with that approval, and also no real intervening factors in terms of, or that would demonstrate an intent to abandon the project. I think, due to the fact that for many of the years, the applicant didn't have the money, and then it was caught up in legal proceedings, would demonstrate that there was no real intent to abandon. And the vested rights, they travel with the property. New York case law as well as board resolutions have recognized that the vested right is transferable from one property owner to the other. And we can submit in writing an analysis of the case law and board resolution history with respect to this issue.
Okay, and please include the cases that you cite too?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And actually, for me, the court cases are more instructive in a certain way than BSA cases. So the more of those you have, the clearer it makes the argument.
Understood. So then, in terms of meeting the findings for a common law vested case, it is a requirement that the applicant incurred substantial expenditures. They've made substantial progress on the construction in furtherance of the permits that were originally granted. And the last finding is that there's serious economic loss if they were made to comply with the R5 zoning. The materials we submitted, as well as the prior precedent, I think establish the substantial expenditures and substantial substantial construction. With regard to serious economic loss.
Oh, let's just go back to that. How does it establish it?
Well, I believe the Department of Buildings findings that 100% of the foundations were completed. And if you want me to further expand on this in a written submission, but 100% completion of a foundation has always been.
But we're talking about, that's progress, arguably. What about expenditures, right? You have to establish that it's substantial expenditures.
Okay.
Right? And then that goes into the project cost way back then, 10 years ago, is obviously different than it is today. So it should be factored in against today's costs.
Okay, but then you'd also have to increase the value of the work that's been completed.
No, the foundations are already in place, and you stated that the foundations are reusable, therefore.
They are.
So there's no additional cost for the foundation. So the foundations cost what they cost.
Of course.
And now you move forward, and the project will cost what it costs.
Okay.
Right? So now you get to find out what percentage of the full total cost is in place, right? But I did want to add that there probably was some site prep that was done subsequent, because old photographs that we see from 2009 show the site was covered with garbage and overgrown, and now we see it's been cleaned. So that should be inserted into it too.
Okay. We will go through that analysis in our next submission.
Okay. Also, there should be a correction. 100% of the concrete was not poured because there's no slab.
Well, you wouldn't have a on-grade slab for a townhome. You would probably have a wood subfloor.
No, it was an on-grade slab that's shown in the drawings.
I'll double check.
It's not on, well, it's on the excavated level of the soil. Of the soil, right? It's a cellar slab.
I will confirm. Okay, I will confirm that.
Okay. Okay. Oh, and we also wanted proof of your ability to continue and a construction schedule.
Okay, I spoke with the applicant. The project's being entirely through private equity. The applicant owns many buildings, some of which are currently under contract for sale. That would net the applicant several $1 million. So they have the personal wherewithal to actually complete the construction of the building without financing. They're also a general contractor, and actually were the original general contractor on this job. They anticipate that the completion of construction will take about 9 to 10 months once the permits are reinstated.
So they're ready to begin right away?
Yeah. They're eager to be in right away so they can get the buildings closed in before it starts to get cold.
So they're making no modifications to their permit for drawings or anything?
So if you could provide that information to us in
Absolutely.
writing?
Absolutely.
With as much detail as you can, as opposed to, we promise we have the money, which is more or less what you said?
All right, I will add that that's not necessarily a finding under a common law vested case.
Yeah, right.
I believe there was also one question about the analysis for R5 zoning versus R5 infill. We will include a discussion of that as well. I believe R5 infill actually has a larger front yard requirement, which would actually make the site even more problematic to comply with in R5 zoning. But we'll include that analysis.
I think that was part of the serious loss analysis, which was made a little bit confusing. It just says kind of that the whole building has to be rebuilt but it's not clear why, right? So to apply the R5 regulations, to say, under the R5 regulations, the side yard would need to be X and the rear yard would need to be Y, et cetera, then we can understand why you can't reuse the foundations for a complying
I
project.
understood. I thought I had done that, but I'll make sure it's
Right. It's just
clear.
that since there's no drawing of what's an R5 proposal, it's impossible for us to imagine it.
Okay.
So it'd be, the simplest would be to get a simple drawing showing what the setback regulations are. I mean, for instance, if it was off a little bit, you could probably use the foundations. So it needs to be off a lot, right?
Yeah.
I know I had raised the R5 infill question, and I had raised it because R5 infill allows for a higher FAR.
It does.
However, if you're not able to recoup that, I just kind of, I don't think I want diagrammatically that, I just want to know if you can accommodate that
Certainly, I'm
higher
happy
FAR
to include
with,
a discussion of R5 infill.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful, I think, if we just get
Okay.
a simple diagram so that we can visually see it and say, yeah, this makes absolutely sense.
So from like just a site plan
And we
perspective?
traditionally ask for that sort of thing when we
Yeah.
have this question, so.
Right. Yeah, it's essentially the zoning diagram in plan and simple section, like a simple diagram, wire diagram that says, this is our building, this is what wouldn't comply today.
Okay.
Right? Okay. And again, if it's just a little bit off of the dimensions of the foundation, then that's not really answering the question well either, because then you could make a correction. And so you really do need to explain why you couldn't reuse the foundation if it's just a little bit off. I
Yeah.
don't know if it is. I actually have
Understood.
no idea.
I'm very confident we'll meet that finding. The R6 does not have a front yard requirement. R5 has a 10-foot front yard requirement. Side yard requirements are significantly different, whereas in the R6, no side yard is required, whereas in the R5, 2 side yards. So I'm very confident that once we start plotting that, you'll really see that this foundation
So
would...
show the foundations in place.
Yep.
And then show the location of where the building needs to be.
Exactly, and
then
it'll show everything
flying
that's
in space,
non-compliant.
kind of, that's the concept, okay.
Understood.
All right. All right, any other comments, questions? Any speakers on this? Okay, we also still need the community board recommendation.
So we attended a meeting with Community Board 12. We first went for the Land Use Committee, which unanimously approved the application. Then we went to the full board, and somebody, I believe, confused R6 with 6-story building, and it sort of took on a life of its own, and so there was actually an equal vote in favor and against, and the community board didn't end up adopting a formal resolution. I can provide you with documentation that it was on the calendar, but they took no formal action.
Okay. Yeah, do provide us with proof that
Absolutely.
they had a hearing.
Sure.
All right. I think that's it then. So we do need you to submit that, all of those materials, right, to help bolster your argument, and this, for me, especially the briefing on the length. How much
I think we could submit in 2 weeks.
Really? Okay.
Can I just ask, you said the current owner is also the GC.
Was the former GC.
Was the former GC, and they will be the
And they
GC.
will continue the construction.
Do they have you said they have a bunch of other projects also in the pipeline. Do they have enough people power to be able to build this in the time frame that they're proposing?
Yeah, I had mentioned that they had several completed projects that
Right.
were actually in contract for sale. So they have the manpower to complete the project, and as well as the financial backing to do so.
Sorry?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so if you could submit on April 27th, that's fair, that you can do that? That's only 2 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. For a hearing on May 17th.
Okay.
Great. Brian?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Great. Thank you very much.
Zoning calendar, continued hearing item, zoning calendar decision items. Item number 12, 3114 BZ, 165 Spencer Street, Brooklyn.
I don't know if anybody's here for this, but we're deferring decision because we're still waiting for the air quality analysis or DEP.
That's a long time.
Yeah, it's because they found toxicity issues that need to be addressed in much further detail.
So what's the date?
I think we should give them, we've been adjourning like every month, I think we should give them 2 months. Right? Yeah. So, how about if we say the end of June, June 28th?
Sure.
I don't know if that's enough. Tracy, what do we think? Should it be longer? Yeah, that's what we said. Okay.
No.
All right, so let's say June 28th.
June 28th, this is.
Yeah.
Item number 13, 23114 BZ, 124 West 23rd Street, Manhattan.
Jordan Most from Shell Lavelle, on behalf of the applicant.
Okay, so this was closed. Is there somebody who wants to speak on this? No, this was closed, okay. So,
I don't know if Jed was here, I don't know, he stepped out, I don't know if he wanted
okay.
to speak.
I mean, we have a letter from the property representative saying that they're okay with us voting on this. So I think that's what we were thinking we would do, right? Okay.
So just, I mean, do
you want to ask?
Are you speaking about the March 23rd letter?
Yeah.
Right.
The president of the condo board.
Right, yeah, I mean, we have that letter as well, we both made submissions on that.
Okay,
Jed.
yeah, I think since you're talking, we have to reopen and if
Okay.
Jed wants to say anything. Okay, so for a motion to reopen. You could just do this by heart, you could look at us.
Yes. No, I was just going to do that. Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. Okay.
Thank you. So just wanted to clear up, I guess, what, in that letter, there was, and I think you alluded to it yesterday in the review session, that there was some noise complaints. We viewed, I did, the owner and one of the residents above viewed the videotapes for those times, and they really were pretty conclusive that the sound sources weren't actually the gym. That there must have been thumbs from something else, that when you looked at the video during those time frames, they were not coming from us. So I think, so I just wanted to clear that up, because there wasn't any additional submission to create sort of clarity on that.
Okay. Okay. All right. I mean, I guess if he's not here, it's because he wasn't sent.
He may not be here in this matter.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay, so then that clears up that, and we didn't get any submission saying that they don't agree with your view on the tapes. Okay, so for a motion to close?
I guess if there's if there's any way we could have a 2-year grant, that would be something I guess, there's not a lot of opportunity to consider that, but.
If you're going to get a C of O and things like that.
We're
it's-
ready to
it's a
do all
lot of
that. We are
work.
ready to complete our.
So
All
I would
right
say
with that?
I'm fine with 2 years. Is this the, that's not the
I'm sorry.
man?
No.
This is the operator.
No, I'm the other man, if he,
No.
no, okay.
No, nobody's here for
All
this.
right.
Is anybody here to speak on 231-14BZ?
No.
No, okay. All right then, so a motion to close again? Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye. Okay, and then I'd like to make a motion to grant for a 2-year term with renewal contingent, so you can know in advance, on having no complaints from neighbors at the time of the hearing, the renewal hearing, and full notification of the neighbors prior to that hearing, as opposed to what's required under our normal regulations, okay? So on that motion, to grant. Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Item number 14, 17715BZ, 432 Albert Avenue, Staten Island. Are we reopening? You're good. We have the, did we get the wetlands permit changed to say two-family? No. And also the statement of facts was supposed to be, yeah, there were a lot of things that needed to be fixed here. So we need to reopen this. So for a motion to reopen. Chair Perlmutter? Aye. Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Otley Brown? Aye. Commissioner Chanda? Aye.
Good morning, Philip L. Rampula, if I may. The revised DEC permit was issued indicating a two-family dwelling. However, on the cover sheet, which is a standard cover sheet, they didn't change it from a 1 to a 2. I understand Gracie from the Bureau Office spoke to DEC, that they do recite my plan and my plan numbers and dates. Unfortunately, the DEC does not stamp plans approved, and they just stamp them received and keep them in their folder. So I am told by our consultant that we should have the revised DEC permit by Friday.
Okay.
That will say two-family dwelling. In addition, I understand that I have to revise my statement of facts and my statement of findings to recite the yards that are being waived. I also have to change BSA 2 on my drawings, to not just be zoning data, but to be zoning calculations, and indicate the FAR, the yards that are being waived, et cetera.
Right, but it's not just a list to show it on the drawings. You can add another little site plan that shows what the required yards are and citing to the sections. So we're clear what we're waiving, because I think in the prior hearing, I went through, and maybe you went through it after and discovered what I went through was not correct, but I was saying that I think you were referring to the wrong sections for the side yard waivers. So I had said, sorry, like 107-461 sends you to 2345AB, and that's where you find out you need a 10-foot front yard unless the yard is deeper, the adjacent yard is deeper, in which case you need 20. So you should have citations to the right sections, and then, and why you're therefore saying you need a 20-foot rear yard because the adjacent house is deeper, or whatever. And then also the 20-foot side yard requirement in the R3X, 107-462, states that a detached 3-story building, and a basement is a story, but I think this is a 3-story building anyway, needs 2 side yards for a total of 20 feet with a minimum width of 8 feet, and you're showing 10, I think.
Correct.
So I don't think you're correct. Or if I'm, verify what I just said, maybe.
So you would rather see that graphically on with a site plan showing all the yards, as well as zoning calculations?
Well, so the site plan is showing you what the regulations are on your as-of-right condition, right? And then then there's the calculations that include the citations to the section in the zoning resolution, and it says 10-foot side yard required or whatever. it actually cites to that section, tells you what's required, and then tells you what's provided, and then it either complies or it doesn't comply, right? The proposed either complies or doesn't comply, like you have to do for DOB. It's just that it's such a complicated little site, and you have very complicated regulations applying, that we need to understand, what are we waiving, right? Okay?
So I'll do it both in a tabular form and a reduced site plan, just showing the yards, nothing else. Or not to do the site plan, just do it in a tabular form.
No, you should, so, like, you have if I remember correctly without looking at the drawings, you have an as-of-right drawing and you have a site plan, right? I mean, and you have
As
a
of right and
proposed.
proposed conditions.
So on the as-of-right, you should show what the requirements are, because I don't think your as-of-right, which ends up with a teeny little triangle, is correct. It may end up with even a tinier triangle when you apply it.
Understood.
Okay? And I guess that's it. Anybody else on this? Are there any speakers on this? Okay, so if you could submit that, then we can close again. So for a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. So then, it sounds like you could do that quickly, right?
I can.
Yeah, so again, you could submit on April 27 for a decision on May 17.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Continued hearing items, item number 15, 313 BZ, 2801 Brown Street, Brooklyn.
Good afternoon. Alexander Lefkovich on behalf of the applicant. I got a chance to listen to some of the board's comments yesterday in the review session, and if it's okay, I'll just go through some of the points to address some of the questions that were raised in order. One of the main things that was raised in the beginning was an overall lack of clarity as to whether this was in fact a reconstruction or it was a lifting, or what the timeline was in the construction of this residence. Now, what happened here was the owner purchased the property approximately 2010, 2011, prior to Hurricane Sandy. When the property was purchased, the portion of the rear yard that was seemingly illegally built was already in place. Then Hurricane Sandy occurred.
So, say that again, sorry. Prior to Hurricane Sandy.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
Prior to 1961, Sanborn maps show a consistent footprint of the building without changing, up until I think the 2010 Sanborn maps, which show that the rear yard was filled in. There was a 72 square foot portion of the rear yard which was filled in. Part of the rear yard went all the way almost to the lot line, and part of it was not. So there seemed to have been an illegal extension done sometime between 2007, 2010, according to the Sanborn maps. After that...
Wait. Sorry, that's not what you said. You said, prior to 61, there was a consistent footprint, but actually, we have Sanborn
Up until
maps.
2007.
Prior to 2007.
No, prior to 1961, up until 2007, there was a consistent footprint according to Sanborn maps.
Based on the Sanborns. You have Sanborns from 61 to 2007.
Right. Now, the next Sanborn map, which I think is 2010, shows that there was the portion of the rear, 72 square foot portion, was filled in to even out the rear yard. Before, it was a portion of the rear yard was all the way to the end, while half was larger, and then the illegal extension was installed somewhere around that time.
Around 2000,
Between
07
07
and 10.
and 2010, before my client purchased the property. Now, she purchased the property already with the rear yard fully built out, and then Hurricane Sandy occurred, which caused severe and substantial damage to the property. About 6 months later, the architects were hired for the purposes of elevating the building in compliance with Appendix G, flood zone elevation, to build a mezzanine.
Wait, slow down now. The architects applied pursuant to Appendix G, so that means pursuant to...
An Alt 1.
64A
64,820, I believe is the vertical elevation, yeah, right? 64,820.
To
So-
elevate the building as it was prior to the destruction and to create a mezzanine out of the attic. I know
So,
one,
wait, slow down. So just to clarify, to elevate pursuant to 64,820, they wanted to, they went to DOB and they showed whatever they showed, aerial photographs, something.
I think there was a
that-
survey of the,
A survey that showed that the building had been built out full to the rear lot line, right? And then they showed that to DOB, and because of that demonstration, they were allowed to retain that existing rear yard
non-compliance. yes.
non-compliance, or we don't know what it was, because DOB called it a legalization. And, right? That, because that's
Well,
what it actually
I
says
think-
in the drawings.
I think what happened was they allowed it, they approved the plans, the building was built, and they did an audit. And in the course of the audit, they identified that in fact, that portion of the 72 square foot portion of the rear was not supported by the Sanborn maps. And then the architect submitted all two, the purpose of legalizing that rear, that portion that was installed. It seems as if that the buildings department figured out that it was not properly, it was not a legal portion after the fact. Now, which leads to one of the reasons why this application was made in front of the BSA board, for the purpose of legalizing that portion. For the FAR was greater than what the zoning is allowing, so we originally submitted this application under Article 73. And throughout the course of this application process, it was understood that that was not good enough to allow the legalization of the rear yard, so that's why I amended my paperwork to include authorization for the board on the special permit under Article 64.
So, but wait a second. There's other things that don't comply on this site, right? The existing side yards are narrower than what's allowed,
But
right?
all of those were pre-1961.
Right, but the building was lifted and allowed to maintain those illegal conditions or non-conforming conditions pursuant to 64A20, which is the Appendix G lift provision
Right.
that allows a non-compliant condition to continue in a lifted state,
Sure.
right?
And I'm not sure it's only limited to that portion of the zoning resolution, the 64-723, which clearly states that you're allowed to maintain existing non-compliances that existed prior to Hurricane Sandy. In addition, it also permits even extending some non-compliances that existed prior to Hurricane Sandy. So I'm not sure exactly under which zoning resolution the architect utilized for purposes of doing the elevation, but either way, the buildings department, it wasn't self-certified. The buildings department did a full audit, and they approved the elevation in the initial building application.
Okay, so it's critical that we find out, is the architect here? Are you
Yes, the architect is here.
So I'd like the architect to speak to this. It's critical that we find out whether Section 64A20 was the provision under which this building was elevated, okay? And we may not know the answer right now because it takes some digging around. You need to come up and speak and identify yourself.
Hello, my name is Richard Walsh, and quite frankly, I don't know that specific answer off the top of my head.
No, I wouldn't think so. So the reason it's critical, as I said in the prior hearing, is we don't have any authority to grant a 73-622 waiver or anything if the building was lifted pursuant to Appendix G, certain provisions in Appendix G. Okay?
I understand you're referring to a specific section which actually says that you're not allowed to elevate, you're not allowed to approve any special permits pursuant to Article 73, but I think the language there is subsequent to that.
Work was done.
No, I mean subsequent to the special permit for Article 64.
No.
Meaning if there was a request for a special permit.
No, it's not a special permit. No, this is the as-of-right lift provision.
Right.
This is the as of right, if you were affected by, if your building existed on October 28, 2012, and you vertically elevated, taking advantage of the provisions that follow in this appendix, which you may have had to do, then you cannot apply for a subsequent, here we are, subsequent 73-622 enlargement. It says right there.
Okay, 2 points. Number one, I would have to review it again. The way I was reading it was that if you do a special, I'm not going to debate that point.
The special, I'm not talking
Right.
about the special permit, I'm under 6492. I'm talking, 6492 is the way you arguably get maybe the rear yard dealt with, right, arguably.
So,
But not, but in terms of additional floor area, you don't get floor area under 6492, and you need floor area. So floor area you can only do through 73-622 or through a variance. Those are your two options for, or also there's that little 10% increase rule, 73-621.
I think that...
For buildings that existed in 1961. so
Right.
there's a
Well,
plenty.
I don't know if this existed because
No, it
it's a
doesn't,
lift.
it's because it was just, I think it's considered a reconstruction.
No, but even for, okay, I don't, without going into that
Yeah,
deeper,
that
but I
would
don't
be,
think 10% helps you anyway.
Yeah.
Well,
Much
no,
more
no,
than
the FAR, I'm not sure it was significantly increased from the pre-construction. It was a non-compliant based on the 1961 build, the FAR before Hurricane Sandy. So the new FAR, I think, is actually less than the existing FAR prior to the reconstruction, if we calculated.
You came here looking for an increase in floor area.
Well,
If you don't need it, then why are you here under the 73-622 at all?
The reason we applied on the 73-622 was because there was a thinking that we needed to go through that route in order to get the FAR legalized. During the course of the application process, the issue with the rear yard came up where it may not be covered under 73-622. We have to refer to Article 64. And I'm hearing now that because this was an elevation, therefore it preempts us from even utilizing 73 altogether, which I thought the way it read was if you're going to apply for a special permit according to Article 64,
You need to read
then you
your
can't.
zoning resolution carefully, and I'd actually like the architect to do that. So here's the thing. You need to figure out if you have existing defensible, non-complying floor area, that you can go to DOB and say, it's existing non-complying floor area, we don't need anything, we can prove it was existing non-complying floor area, then you don't need this 73-622 special permit from us. And then we're done talking about floor area. In which case, you can come to us for other kinds of waivers, like the rear yard, for example, but I'm not so sure that we're okay with that. But for instance, the 6492 special permit enables us to waive bulk regulations. However, the findings are very specific. The findings for waiving a bulk regulation says that such modifications, the requested waiver, are the minimum necessary to allow for an appropriate building in compliance with flood-resistant construction standards. So the whole point of that special permit is when you lift the building, sometimes you have to do things like push it back because you need steps to get up to the elevated portion. And if you had steps, they'd be off your property line. So it'll allow you to push the building back, in which case now you're invading the required rear yard, right? That's not the case here. Here, it was an illegal extension done, and then trying to legalize it after the fact. And the other part of it is there's also a finding that the proposed modifications will not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. You're talking about building right up to the property line where on these tiny shallow lots that are characteristic of the neighborhood where you're so close to your neighbor that it's arguably dangerous.
According to 64-723, the standard outlined there is if any existing non-compliance prior to the destruction of Hurricane Sandy can be maintained.
But that's an existing legal non-compliance, right? That's the one where DOB has to say, we agree with you. You proved to us that prior to Hurricane Sandy, this was your floor plate, and we accepted your proof. And then when you elevate, you get to elevate with all of those those existing non-compliances, whatever DOB calls them. It doesn't sound like that's what happened with you. It sounds like DOB decided that one of those non-compliances they can't allow. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe you go back to DOB and you say to them, here's the survey from 2011, and here's me lifting it up in 2012 or 2013, and therefore we should qualify for this existing condition under 64A20 as a lift of a non-compliant situation. You know, go back to DOB and argue that.
Well, according to 6492, it says that one of the elements that needs to be found is that there's practical difficulties in complying with the flood zone regulations in elevating the building.
That's not all it says.
I mean, there's three elements there.
No. You have to finish that sentence, and that such modifications are the minimum necessary to allow for an appropriate building in compliance with the flood-resistant regulations. What about lifting the building requires you to have that additional thing in the rear yard?
Because it was there before we lifted it.
That's a different argument.
So, and it creates a tremendous hardship in order to have to cut out that piece.
According to the DOB, that was illegal, right? So either you prove to DOB that it was legal, in which case you don't have to ask us this question, that's DOB's department, or you have to make the findings that something about the lifting required you to add that piece on the back, and I don't see it. We've seen a number of these in the Build It Back program where people go through the HPD to get these approvals, where the building had to be lifted and then it had to be slid back on the lot in order to allow for a staircase or a porch or something like that. That's not what happened here. It was lifted in place, and there was this illegal thing already there, or not illegal. That's, again, for you to...
Well, I think it was established, according to Sanborn maps, that that portion was built somewhere between 2007 and 2009. It wasn't illegal non-compliance that existed prior to 61. But the practical difficulties and challenges to have to cut it out during a lift.
You're missing, you're not reading the whole paragraph of the finding. You can't just pick the part you want and use that. You got to read the whole thing.
But then, as I understand, we would be required to, during the lift, cut it out?
If it was illegal, yeah, you're not supposed to build illegally.
But, I mean, seven...
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say illegality can't be the basis for a hardship finding. You can't say yes, it's illegal, but now it's going to cost us a lot to remove it.
The regulation clearly says any non-compliance that existed not before 61, before the destruction of Hurricane Sandy, can be maintained. So...
That's for DOB to determine. If you want to argue DOB's determination, that's a different kind of a case.
I understand. Okay.
That's an A case where you go in, you make the argument that are supposed to be the things you demonstrate to DOB, and DOB says we don't agree with you. Then you come here and we fight it out. Who's right? I don't know who's right.
Okay.
But it's not available. The 73-622, as far as I can tell, unless the architect does different research, is not available to us. So we don't have any floor area to give you.
What is the provision that you're referring to that restricts 73-622?
It's 64-A20. But you have to, you can't, again, when you read the zoning resolution, you can't pick and choose the sentences you want. You have to read through the whole section to figure out how this applies.
We went through it thoroughly, and I noticed the section with 73-62. 64 talks about special permit that could be utilized to...
I'm not talking about the 6492 special permit. This is about as-of-right vertical lifts.
Okay.
So
just to summarize, there's a question whether, in fact, the FAR does need a special permit from the board, or that's something we can go back to the buildings department, that it is in compliance with Article 64. And the other issue is...
No, let's go back. It's about the rear yard extension. The rear yard extension is either something DOB considers to be an existing condition prior to Sandy that can remain during the lift and after the lift, which then if it has floor area in it in excess of what's allowed, it's because DOB said it's an existing condition. But it doesn't allow you to have additional floor area that DOB didn't approve, like the lift, if I understood the drawings correctly, did not include this mezzanine that got turned into a second floor, right?
If I can prove that at the end of the day, with the mezzanine and the little sliver, the total gross square footage of the building is still less than what's allowed by the FAR.
Then you don't have to be here for that.
Yeah, that's...
That would be ideal, yeah.
But what about though the fact that that little sliver is still, you know what I mean, like, if the FAR is okay, but the sliver is still
In the rear yard?
in the rear yard?
We don't have any authority under 73-622 to look at that at all. So that 73-622 is now like gone, right? You don't need more floor area, we're not talking about it. 6492 special permit allows us to consider obstructions in yards like that. But what I'm saying, and I think we should hear from some of the other commissioners, I'm not convinced that the board believes that you should have that extension into the rear yard because it brings you right up to the rear property line, which is fire hazard on so many levels, fire spread, et cetera, et cetera. There's a reason why buildings are separated from each other.
But so you indicated in the review session that to even consider those points under 6492, you wanted to see if there was any other properties that were built out to the property line similar to here. You wanted to get more information about other projects in the neighborhood in order to help evaluate whether or not we can get the special permit under 6492, if I understood correctly.
Yeah, it's to understand the conditions at the rear. So far, I'm relying on Google Earth, so it's hard to tell what's going on. But if anybody else has comments about...
What would be helpful for me is if you could give us what was given to the building department to prove that that this was the configuration of the building. I guess this survey that we have is from 2014, and if there's an earlier survey that you gave to the building department?
I think as part of the approved plans to elevate the building as it existed, a survey was submitted, yes.
That the building, that this was the configuration of the building prior
And what would
to
be the,
Sandy.
just so I can understand better.
Well, I don't think we have anything that actually gives us what
that
it looked like prior to Sandy.
Yeah, we just have the approved DOB drawings from 9/25/13.
There seems to be an aerial photograph from 2008, which agrees with what you're saying.
That there was an extension there.
It looks like it to me, yeah. This is
If
on the
they have
BSA
something
website,
that's-
if you go back to 2008.
But if you have something like a survey.
Well, a survey from when the property was purchased also, maybe if there was one.
Yeah, we for sure, we should have that, and I'll be able to supply that. I'm just trying to get understanding. It
Well,
would be
it's
helpful
adding just add to the cooperation that it's actually,
Okay.
that little piece exists in the way it was.
Exactly, but the thing is, it doesn't mean that it gets you anywhere with the special permit. What it would get you with is going back to DOB saying, you should have approved our lift under 64A20 with that little extension, right?
understand.
Then that's out of our hands, we don't have to talk about it.
So just, I'm going to summarize. In terms of the FAR, the understanding is we have to go back to the buildings department because we can't do a special permit under 73-622. In terms of the rear yard, we should try to get that done with the buildings department as well, based on Article 64 regulations, that it was something that existed prior to Hurricane Sandy. If not, then we'll go back to the board to see if we can get it legalized under the special permit and satisfy the requirement, the entire paragraph, essentially.
Right.
So,
But understanding, you don't have a lot of sympathy from me about that rear yard extension, right?
So
I think I'd like to actually hear from the fire department, but the idea of building to a rear lot line and basically butting up against your neighbors, I find dangerous. These are wood structures, right?
Especially with an illegal portion.
Yeah.
You know, I might think differently if you showed me that, back in 1957, this was the configuration, but seeing as how you had some sort of like a rear yard and that was filled in illegally, that I'm still having problems with.
Now,
And then when you look at the entire block on the Sanborn map, it seems like this is an anomaly. It's not a common occurrence, and I'm concerned about the precedent setting of allowing it, because then everybody else on the block could conceivably have the same extension. That's not what the
Well, with
planners
some of the-
conceived of.
Right.
the adjacent property in the rear, how it's configured, would that play a role in the board's consideration based on the concerns of a fire hazard?
We need to see what the conditions are. I don't know what
Okay.
say.
So it would be helpful to see the conditions, with
Yeah.
what parameters, within which, how
Yeah,
much?
see, that's the thing. They're all going to be illegal, those additions, right? So this is a problem,
Or
right?
if they're not illegal, the board doesn't want accountants taking advantage of your neighbor's compliance and sort of approving a non-compliance just because your neighbors are compliant. That's not
I mean,
something.
our absolute last fallback would have to be to do a variance application because
You wouldn't qualify for a variance. Every single lot in this neighborhood is the same size as yours. You're not unique at all. I mean, it's strange.
Yeah.
They're very odd little lots, but they're odd for the city in general. They're not odd for this neighborhood at all. So, yeah. I mean, the short answer is you're not supposed to build illegally. So then to try to come and, beg for forgiveness, that's,
Yeah. My understanding of the facts of the case is that at some point you had a house, then at some point after 2007, there was an extension to the rear yard. When Hurricane Sandy occurred, there was a reconstruction and elevation. And 64A20 would allow you to keep that extension into the rear yard. It sort of says whatever you got, you get to keep. But then there is an additional filling in of that mezzanine and addition of FAR that then you tried to come back and legalize through 73-622. And 64A20 is pretty clear that you either get your rear yard or extension, or you could ask for the floor area under 73-622, but you can't get both. So I think it's you need to talk
But
about.
if I can prove that the mezzanine is still, at the end of the day.
That's between you and DOB. Yeah.
But the thing is, if I can prove that, and I can prove that
Right.
all floor area is still below the number,
Right.
then at that point,
Then you could withdraw your application here, and you don't have to be here.
but what about the fact that the 72-foot little sliver,
the 72-foot sliver where?
The
And the
square
rear?
foot.
the 72 square foot sliver, the little.
Then that's under the,
No, we're back to where we were talking about. We want you to get that cleared up at DOB. It sounds like either the argument at DOB was not made well, because if you had a survey that showed it, if there's an aerial that showed it, then you demonstrated to DOB that it existed. It says that shall apply to the vertical elevation of buildings containing residences that existed on October 28th. It doesn't say that existed and were permitted. I mean, I don't know how DOB has been interpreting this,
Okay.
right?
All right.
But the whole idea for this provision was kind of an emergency issue. They weren't asking everybody to, go back and prove ancient existence, or maybe they were. I don't know how DOB has been looking at
Well,
it.
originally they approved the A1 application. They
So
allowed
then-
them to do all of that.
But this was a self-certification, right?
No, the A1 was,
The A1 was professionally self-certified and then was audited.
Right, so it's self-certified and then audited. So instead of going to DOB and making your case, you waited until they audited it. That's one of the reasons self-certification is perilous. When you have these kind of questionable situations, right? So, yeah, so you need to do a lot more homework for us to be able to get anywhere, but I wouldn't count on that rear yard extension. just.
Is there any additional factors that the board would like to see
Well-
if we do end up taking that route of trying to get it legalized under Article 64?
We said, we want to understand what's going on in the rear yard generally of this immediate area, the immediate rear yards, but that doesn't mean it's persuasive, it just means now we understand better what's going on in those rear yards,
The
right?
intention of 6492 is to allow vertical,
Yes.
raising and to deal with non-compliances that are more directly tied to
Yes.
complying with Appendix G.
Yes.
It's,
But then they have the fact that they extended that non-compliance to the mezzanine in the rear
Right,
yard.
right. We can't fix the mezzanine through that. There's no.
I don't think
we don't have
DOB
that.
can either.
And that goes back again to what we've been talking about, what Ryan was saying, is that, that same section in A64A20, which says 6492, says over and over again that the reason for the non-compliance is caused by the need to vertically lift. So again and again and again, we vertically lift, I can't get to the floor that's way up there, 14 feet off the ground. I need to install a very long staircase. It runs off my property, therefore I have to slide the whole building back in order to be able to do that. That's when you would be able to tie in your lift to meeting the requirements. Building that little thing in the back has nothing to do with any of that. So I don't even think, frankly, if you showed us what the conditions are in the back, you'd make that finding.
Well, I understand what Mr. Singer just mentioned, that 6492 does in fact allow us to raise it. It's just the problem starts to occur when you go to the mezzanine level.
No, you're not hearing. The 6492 allows you to raise it. 64A20 allows you to raise it. 6492 allows you to cure non-complying conditions that are created as a result of raising the building. This rear yard thing was not created as a result of raising the building. It was created by illegal construction. That's why you have to go back to DOB and persuade them that it is curable illegal construction. And I don't think we can help you with this. Okay?
Okay.
I think one of the reasons this is taking a long time is that you need to read the zoning resolution very carefully together and understand it, and this is kind of news to you. So take a lot of time to read it and parse through it and understand it, and then you'll see how we got to what we got. Okay?
It's clear. Now, practically speaking, moving forward, can we get another date to give us an opportunity
Yeah,
to go
so
to the
are there
village?
any speakers on this? Okay, so
I just wanted to mention about the cellar, that I know you have a revised cellar construction material drawing, but I still don't understand. It's supposed to be flood-resistant construction materials, and you still have bat insulation, you have vapor barriers. I mean, the cellar is supposed to be able to be flooded with water. You have gypsum board. I just don't understand why you're putting those types of materials in a space that's not a living space. You're insulating it, and you're putting gypsum board, finishing the inside. It's supposed to be able to be flooded.
Well, the inside is not finished now.
Okay, but
We're gonna be-
I don't know, but that's your new detail. That's what's shown on your new detail. That you're gonna put in concrete block instead of the wooden.
I'll clarify that for you.
But it sounds like you're insulating the space and finishing it on the inside.
No, that's not the intention.
Okay,
I'll clarify.
okay.
So just, and one last point, is there any other things in this application that,
Yeah, so then the other thing that we left out is the permitted obstruction by the eaves. This calculation is not correct. The maximum eve of permitted obstruction is 5 inches, not 12, if you do the calculations, because you can, again, pick the part of the sentence that you want to use. It's 16 inches or 20% of the yard width equals 5 inches. And then,
I'll adjust.
okay, okay, I think that's it. Anybody else? Anything else? All right, this is not easy. I don't know that you're going to be able to get anywhere with us. So you can give it a college try. Maybe a month? Is that enough time?
Sure.
Okay. So that would mean a submission on, say, a submission on May 18th. For a hearing on June 2nd.
That's a Thursday.
Yeah, that's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday hearing?
Sorry?
It's a Thursday.
Thursday hearing,
Yeah,
because
we-
that's Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, May 18th is Wednesday, and then June 2nd is Thursday.
Correct.
Thank you very much.
Item number 16, 214BZ, 4605 Parsons Boulevard, Queens. President adjournment?
Yeah, so this one, we'll just adjourn this till next hearing, the April 26th hearing. And hopefully they will submit
It will be submitted within the week, yeah.
within a week. Okay.
Item number 17, 11-15BZ, 155 Dover Street, Brooklyn.
They wanted to adjourn this. I don't know if anyone's here to
Eric,
speak to that.
where did he go?
Is Eric here? No? No. Can we get him, or should we just?
Yeah, let him go get him.
Assign. Okay, so let's make it May 24th.
Oh, yes.
What's May 24th look like? Now. It's good. 24th, yep.
The 24th is fine.
Yeah.
That's what you want.
Okay, good.
Work for him?
So if that was May 24th, then submit on May 4th. No? Okay. All right. So this one will adjourn to May 24th with a submission date of May 4th.
And Frank.
5-4,
5/4,
5/24.
correct.
Item number 18, 6715BZ, 338 West 23rd Street, Manhattan. There's Eric. Where the hell did he go? Never mind.
That's all right.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
He was outside.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
In response to the...
State your name, just in case.
Frank Angelino, on behalf of the Cell Theater, 338 West 23rd Street, Manhattan. In response to the comments you made at the last public hearing on the 23rd of March, revised plans were submitted which responded to each of those comments as enumerated in the cover letter, which was submitted to you.
Okay. And we also got the community board recommendation, so, which was voted on a long time ago, but I think we hadn't seen it until now. So we see that there had been a lot of noise complaints, so.
Actually, there was, according to the community board letter, it said a lot of noise complaints. We understood it was just one neighbor who made complaints about use of the rear yard by the theater prior to 2015. After that complaint, the theater stopped using the rear yard
Okay, well, we can only.
in any way
Yeah.
that could cause a complaint.
Okay, so, but we can still make some recommendations or some conditions that would address potential problems in the future. So does anybody have anything else they want to add? No? Are there any speakers on this?
Well, just if the fire department did an inspection.
Yeah, right, fire department was going to check the, but I do have fire department sign off.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Commissioners, Anthony Scaduto for the Fire Department. Based on our objections, the response to the drawings, the dressing rooms are going to be sprinkled. We have, we have no objection to the other areas that we recommended not being sprinkled. We'll leave up to the board. Our only other issue was that we felt that this is a public assembly. Based on the architect's recalculations, we're going to defer over the buildings. Our feeling is that it's because it's non-fixed seating, it's calculated based on standees and not the seating, but we'll rather than prolong an argument, we'll just defer the decision to buildings and have them make a determination as to what they're going to use as the basis for measuring square footage and occupancy. So we have no further objections to this case.
Okay, great, thank you very much. Okay, so then I guess we could close this. So for a motion to close?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye. And we don't have any other submissions, so I'd like to make a motion to approve on condition, which I'm going to read because it's a few things. So, condition approval on the maximum occupancy of 75 persons total, based on, and also that DOB determines whether a public assembly permit is needed. So perhaps they determine it's more than 75. Based on that all patrons that wait inside for performances to start, and that there are no lineups or congregation on the street, understanding that there's that little area in the front, but still the idea is to keep everyone inside, that there be no access to the rear yard except by residents of the upstairs apartment, or in the case of an emergency, that windows and doors to the rear remain in a closed position during theater operations, that signs be added stating rear doors and windows be kept in closed position during theater operations, and another sign saying rear yard for use by occupants of residential unit at second and third floor only, no theater activities. And also, that the approval is conditioned on the use and residential occupancy of the second and third floors by the theater owners only. That means if it changes hands and there's a separation, you have to come back to us, okay? And that's it. Anybody else other? Okay. So on that motion on condition, motion to grant?
Chair Perlmutter?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hinkson?
Aye.
Commissioner Montanez?
Aye.
Commissioner Brown?
Aye.
Commissioner Chanda?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
How are we doing?
Yeah, we're not right to one, so we should.
Oh, we should wait the 10 minutes.
We want to
No,
take a break.
Take a 10-minute break or
Do we want to take lunch?
We can take lunch, yeah.
We should just take
So-
lunch, so we should
Come
take
back at
lunch.
1:15? 1:30?
I don't know. Who cares?
15's fine with me.
1:15, they're fine with 1:15.
All right.
That
Okay,
gives us
we're
almost 30
gonna
minutes.
continue we're gonna stop now and continue at 1:15.
Yeah, because people will come from 1 o'clock and keep them there for a half hour.